is here, and the rest of you will take attendance for. Thank you, I appreciate that. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda. We have an agenda, and I would like a motion to approve the minutes. Wasn't here. Well, I was. Evil Queen trapped cancel prints in an electronic device and ran the meeting herself. It's a mythology thing, right? It's later in the agenda. We can't approve the minutes.
I'm here. I was in the meeting.
I'll go on. You go ahead. Second. Corrections to the minutes. All in favor? We have minutes. Public. That's not us.
No one from the
Opening
public.
act tonight. We'll have better luck for public next time, I'm sure. Course proposals. Ms. Ferguson, would you like to introduce this?
I would love to introduce this, but I'm in just a second. And I'm Aaron Sullivan. It's nice enough to come and speak tonight to the 3 course proposals that you have in your package. Mary DeMarchi had hoped to be here. So it's all going to be on Aaron. And Aaron, if you could just give, it's in the course proposal, but if you could just give a brief sort of introduction to what you
We do briefs.
Mr. Kisco's all about brief.
Yes.
If you could just briefly explain to the committee sort of the impetus for this and then go into the different choices.
So as you all know, the state of Connecticut requires 4 English credits for high school students. And we have done for many years 4 traditional year-long credits based on the same model for all levels with variations to scaffolding. We started looking at what some of our schools in our district, as well as just other schools in the state, were doing successfully as modifications to that to appeal more to student interest, while also adhering to the CCSS standards for English credits. And what we found was that a lot of electives were becoming a very popular model to provide student choice and student engagement. Basic.
They're saying they can't hear the audio. Sorry. It's red, should it be green?
Sorry, it should be good now.
Okay. So again, in order to address student engagement, as well and student choice, which are hot button items, specifically today and encouraged by the State Board of Ed, we looked at models that other schools were using to provide electives within the English department. Many of our departments do offer electives to satisfy those credits. We have not up to this point, so we were looking to develop that. And we did a survey of the students to consider what would be of the most interest to them while still adhering to what we could do. So we offered them a selection of choices. From those choices, we picked the top 8. And from the top 8, we decided to move forward with 3 that would suit the in line with what the year-long classes were doing at that time, so that they would move in seamlessly as electives. And those top 3 at this moment are the mythology course, the heroes and anti-heroes course, and the horror course. So again, these were these top student choices, as well as the choices that would align most effectively with the CCSS standards, so that we could seamlessly develop these and integrate these as we move forward. Okay, so with the horror course, we were able to bring in quite a number of classic texts from the Romantic era, which ties very well into the coursework that we've already been doing with the students in both sophomore and junior year. From the mythology course, we were able to build on world literature, as well as bring that forward into the modern day, providing them a scope and sequence of literature, as it were, as well as tie into what they're seeing and experiencing today in a lot of pop culture, so that we can relate those classic texts back to what they're doing today and provide that relevancy. and also with the heroes and anti-heroes. Again, it still sticks to those tropes of classic literature while at the same time responding to much of what came out of World War II in literature and the creation of comic books, which of course ties to a very high button or high interest button for the kids. But at the same time, we're still relying on those traditional texts and tying the two back together to provide them a basis in cultural literacy and a basis in those CCSS standards, while at the same time responding to student choice and student interest.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, then I'll let everyone else loose on you. So students would not be taking what in order to be able to take one of these?
So what we currently offer junior and senior year are year-long courses. The junior year has been focused on American literature at this point, and the year-long course hits all of the CCS standards for 11 and 12. We took the 11 and 12 because those CCS standards are 2-grade standards. We have broken those down in our curriculum to match up with certain semesters in junior and senior year. And so they would be taking these courses in place of the year-long courses that are offered, but they would still be hitting these same standards in the same semesters.
So the year-long courses now offer things like Sherlock Holmes and the other things that show up here, or?
No, so the year-long courses that may still be offered would be our Northwestern courses, which are the texts that we've been using up to this point. Junior and senior year, there are different texts. These would again offer the same skills, just with different texts that speak to the specific genre.
Okay, so what's going to be the process for putting more specifics to these proposals? I mean, what I see in front of us is ideas with standards and so on, but no list of literature. I see.
Well, you have a list of the
I see
literature that,
topic lists. I see Norse mythology.
yeah.
But how are we going to approach Norse mythology? Are we going to do the ring cycle, for instance?
So we will pull from Norse mythology specific excerpts that fit with what we were teaching at
Right.
that
And
time.
what's the process going to be for determining what those specific materials will be and topics will be?
As we continue in March to work on the curriculum, we will be continuing
Okay,
to.
so this will be the teachers who are apt to be teaching these
Yes.
courses who will.
Yes.
Okay, so. That's it for me. Who else wants to?
I love the idea of the choice for kids, something that they'll be interested in. I think that's
How are these courses, how are they weighted? How are these courses weighted? Because English currently honors CP.
So yeah, there's an 04 weighting for CP and an 06 for honors and an 08 for AP. Now, if they choose to take AP, that's a different curriculum. Okay, so that remains the 08. In terms of the 04 versus the 06 rating, I am not, unfortunately, not sure about that. As I'm not department head, I didn't get in on those conversations. I can't answer that right now.
We have some idea which teachers will want to teach these.
That hasn't been fleshed out just yet.
How many people in the English department?
We currently have 8 or 9 teachers in the department. Did we add another 9 now or still at 8?
We have 9.
9, thank you.
Hard to keep track, certainly. And that's why it's also hard to figure out who's teaching what.
Exactly.
Really, it's driven by the schedule and people's interests.
And you don't have a curriculum yet, so once you get a curriculum
Well,
together.
we do
then-
have some.
We do. The
Okay.
curriculum is mostly developed. It's just a matter of finalizing certain elements, but it's pretty much developed.
Yeah, well, the application of the standards and so on, and the skills involved are certainly here, at least what we've been given, but specific materials to be determined later, which will actually depend a lot on the strengths and interests of the teachers who end up teaching these. I would
Well, it often,
assume.
responds to the strengths and interests of the students in your class as well. So one excerpt from Norse mythology might not work for a particular group, depending on their dynamic, their skill level, et cetera, and you might need to pivot to same text, a different excerpt.
Understood.
I think this is great. I would
Yeah,
love
I do
to
too.
have the opportunity for them.
I know.
That's
right.
What I think is awesome about it too is that you surveyed the kids, and when they see that you listened and you actually took action, right, and developed something based on their input, I think that's powerful. That's engaging in itself, you know?
So what were some of the more interesting courses that kids thought they might like?
Science fiction and fantasy was another one of our top ones. Contemporary literature was one that the students, of course, not surprisingly, highlighted as one of our top ones. And I'm sorry, I don't know.
You got it down to 8, and that means there are 5 that didn't get chosen, or at least haven't yet
developed.
developed.
Right.
What are those? Science fiction, one of those?
Science fiction is definitely one of them. Contemporary literature, I believe it's broken into contemporary literature 1, contemporary literature 2. And then again, I'm sorry, I don't have that
Okay.
with me at the moment.
We also, John, talked about, you know, the English department being able to develop these courses to align with certain pathways, once those pathways are better fleshed out.
Well, and I was only half kidding when I talked about the ring cycle, because I see that there could be a very strong connection between this and performance art.
Mhm.
Very strong. Very strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm sorry, how is it going to be determined what level these land at? Because I think if you have, like right now, if you have kids that are taking honors English 4, that's helping prepare them for college. If they take something like this, I understand why this would sound more appealing. It would probably would sound more appealing to me as a student too. But is that going to provide them with the same amount of rigor and the same amount of preparation that
Well,
they would need?
So our Honors English 4 right now is a Northwestern course. We still plan on offering the Northwestern course for the students, which would be the separate curriculum.
So they just
I-
didn't
I-
take it.
Right,
No,
yeah. So
I see what
these
you're
I know would at least be an 04 level. I don't know if there has been discussion about offering any of these at the 06 level, and I don't have the answer on that.
So these would probably be 04.
I don't want to say that definitively at this moment.
I don't think we have that information, and I think when you look at these subjects or look at these courses, you're really touching on all those things that they would do in English 3 and 4. When you're looking at mythology, you're
But
looking
we-
at
but we-
superheroes, anti-heroes. You threaded it in beautifully.
But to Jess's concern, to making sure that they have the option for that rigor, they will have that Northwestern course that is still available to them that provides the Northwestern credit as well as the being in 06 level. It aligns, that's why the 06 level aligns with the Northwestern, because it's a college course.
Right.
So they will have that option.
Right, and I understand the question too, and your point is well taken, but I just have to say this about the English department, not to discredit any others, but I feel like every course that you guys teach at every level has a high level of rigor. And that's really the hallmark, one of the hallmarks of the department, so just kudos to you folks.
Can I just say one thing to piggyback on that? Erin talked about how these courses are aligned with the Common Core standards. So the work of doing those standards is rigorous. It's just applying it to different text and genre.
Right, but we weight courses differently.
We do, yeah, I know, yeah.
Okay, anything else? Okay, is there any reason not to pass these on to the board? We don't really take votes.
I do want to say too, I really appreciated the book list. I thought that was very helpful.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that, I didn't include it in advance because they really didn't have anything put together, so we did that late yesterday. So that's a preliminary, right.
We did, we had to sort it in a separate spot.
Right.
We had just not put it in the folder pieces.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Distinguished alumnus. We have the paperwork in the packet. Again, Mrs. Ferguson.
So this is just, we're here again. It's hard to believe, right? That it's already this time again this year. The form is in the packet. The only thing that this committee needs to decide is how long you want to allow for submissions. I have the date, scholarship night this year is June 1st. Today's February 8th. I mean, how much time in the, so when I amended this form, we had asked last year for them to be submitted by March 1st, but
I'm not sure that allows for enough time right now. It's a short month anyway, and it's an extra short month this year. So do you want to go to March 15th? Would that give enough time? And then we bring it back to this group at the beginning of May. Remembering that we need to notify the recipient by May 1st.
Real question is, how much time will you need between the deadline and having these ready for us to look at on the 5th of April?
It's not a problem for us at the office to turn it around.
Okay.
Lisa Soliani is receiving them. We already have a couple, believe it or not, people who have sort of jumped the gun and said, hey, I'm sending you this while I'm thinking of it.
It's the committee's pleasure. 15th sound good?
Yeah.
15th, 16th?
So we can decide by the 1st of April next.
I will end up abdicating in Mrs. Richardson's favor for this because actually she has, when she was on the committee before, in charge of sorting through things and directing the choice, the discussion. Sure, if you will. Thank you.
The 10th, that Friday.
So
10th is a Friday.
Yeah.
I want to give people the weekend.
sorry, John, can you just repeat what we're doing here?
No, I'm just, Ellen's suggesting that the 10th as a Friday might be a more logical deadline,
March 10th.
March 10th. Anyone want to scream about that? Yes, no?
Okay, so
March
that's about a month, right, from
March 10th
now,
is
and
a
then
month.
tomorrow we will put it, blast out to all TPS, we'll get it in all the, newspapers and publications that we typically promote it through. And we always do a couple of reminders, and then I'll get everything to you. Now, in the past, I think I notified you and had packets available for you to pick up prior to the,
We have.
okay, we can do that again.
We have.
Yeah.
With the understanding this is a confidential process once paperwork goes out.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be more people who aren't chosen than are. And Want to keep it confidential? And thank you, because I didn't put this on the original agenda. I wasn't even thinking, but Mrs. Ferguson just said, hey, got to do it. So I do appreciate that.
And I remembered something. Chop me up for one.
Board goals for 23, 24. We've been looking for people to submit board goals for months now, and it comes a time when we have to do something. So I'd like to start this out as an open discussion, just to see what, with the suggestions we have here, as well as suggestions for goals that we might keep. So anyway, anyone want to say anything about any of these submitted suggestions? Or does anyone have a suggestion of their own? Let's deal with these first. Yes.
Like to keep what we have.
What we have, all of them?
Well, red line 4 and 5. Add the second one.
Add the second page. Okay, let's start with that suggestion. So we keep 1, 2, and 3,
Yep.
as stated here. Get rid of 4 and 5 and move to second page, all of them. Okay, very ambitious. Well,
But it's kind of what we do now, but it's putting it in right, you know what I mean? Putting the paperwork. in right.
fiscal plan reduction federal step, right, to be able to respond to that. Monitor current trends occurring and their impact on the budget, special ed enrollment reductions. Okay, we've been doing that. This would be memorialization. In the process of evaluating site capacity. Oh, yeah, well, that's here already.
That's what the ones with number 3.
I think they're different. I think this first one talks about the new facility, that talks
I see,
more about
okay,
our
yeah,
existing
you're right.
facilities.
Okay.
You're right.
Align and update BOE policies with current legislation. Okay, in other words, respond to, yeah, got it. Cohesive BOE focus needs of all students regardless of students for the BOE regardless of.
Yeah, I need some more information. on
So it's the BOE which should avoid political affiliation, religious or personal beliefs in its decisions. That's
Yes.
the understanding here? Okay,
That's my suggestion.
okay, not the students.
No, I think we have 4,300 kids and over 400 staff members, and our decision should be based on what's in the best interest of everybody, not people's personal beliefs, whether it be political, religious, just putting it out there, because I think we've had some issues with that, so I'd like to memorialize that to refocus the board.
Being told we shouldn't let personal beliefs, no matter how deeply held, interfere with decisions about board policy. Okay. Anyone want to talk about any of this?
I don't think I've seen examples of the board being divided across political affiliation. Yeah, I guess, political, I mean, that sounds like Republicans versus Democrats, and I don't think I've ever seen that on this board.
I feel like there's been a lot of it the last year.
Republicans versus
Yeah.
Democrats.
Yeah, I do.
Do you think it would be easy for someone from the community to tell who the Republicans were and the Democrats from watching us?
I do.
I'm not sure I agree. Yes,
You don't
no?
have to.
I don't agree at all.
You don't have to. I think it's my observation. I think not just my observation, I think there's others that would agree that there's been, whether it be due to political, religious, or personal beliefs, there's been a lot of conflict on the board the last year, and it's uncomfortable.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody try to put their religious beliefs on the board either. Why does that happen?
What about the? Never mind.
No, what, no, really?
No,
That's a good question.
it wasn't,
That's a good
it
question.
wasn't a part of a meeting, it wasn't an email communication, it was something else that we received the other day that I think was religious affiliated. Podcast. Is there a religious affiliation to that? You got it, you got it.
Watch that.
The individual question to each person is, do you think the board is productive if people are putting their individual things ahead of the best needs of the district and a 10-person board? You know, we've had so many national issues get brought into the board. So it's really just individually, if you feel that a board is productive, if everybody's individually pushing their own agendas. That's why I put
I
it out
don't
there.
feel like we're as productive as we were 3 years ago. And I don't know if it was because we were still remote learning or what. I'm just comparing it to my time on the board to what I felt was productive in the beginning versus where we are right now. It's just my own observation. If we're discussing board goals, I just feel like it's worth putting it out there.
How would you even do this?
And as a
I mean,
Yeah,
what would this look like? Establish a cohesive board. Yeah, but how? What do we do? We change the bylaws to,
Now
tell
we're more
people that-
cognizant of what we're saying, how we're saying it, how we're.
what we're focusing
pushing-
on.
Right, what
I
we're
think we're
focusing on.
losing, I think we're losing perspective. And in the long run, it's not gonna benefit what our purpose is.
maybe
for why we're
establishes
here.
so. Do we see a presumption of guilt here by accepting this as a goal? That we do act according to political affiliation, religious or personal beliefs?
I mean, I would like to point out that we are elected officials, first of all. So anybody elected to any position in any government has a right to bring into that some level of political affiliation, even though I will continue to assert that I actually don't think this board is partisan across lines. And as far as personal beliefs go,
every single person at the table has personal beliefs about things. Whenever you make a judgment, whenever you make a decision, whenever you express an opinion, you're basing them on something. Your beliefs about some about what looks like a good education, your beliefs about what the role of the school district, I mean, whatever it is. I think we have to keep in mind that we have to take into consideration the entire district when we're having these conversations. Of course.
With all students.
Right, of course, which I believe is students that excel, students that don't necessarily excel. I think there's a broad spectrum in our district and we can't lose focus on the kids that need attention.
It's an example of a religious belief that's shown up in board debate.
My board goal is what I think the board should be.
We discussed this at our
Right.
retreat ad nauseam. We discussed this. So I don't know why it's coming as a big surprise to everybody.
But if it's not something that the board thinks is important or relevant, then don't have it be a board goal. But I don't think a lot of people in the community also have raised these things as concerns. So I think we should be conscious of it. And everyone can say, it's not me. Everybody probably does it at some point or another. But I think if we put it as a board goal, it's something we should all be conscious of. So that's why I'm suggesting it. It's up to everybody, as a reminder to everybody. Yeah.
It's not a policy, it's not a bylaw, it's not a code of ethic, it's a goal to focus on. I think to keep us focused on
Right.
our purpose.
For all
So should the
Right.
goals be achievable, definable? What's that acronym we?
SMART.
Smart, go ahead. What's
Specific,
specific?
measurable,
Measurable,
attainable,
attainable,
relevant,
relevant,
and timely.
They are could also stand for realistic, too. Realistic or relevant, achievable, attainable, realistic, relevant. You know.
My other concern with this goal would be establish a cohesive view. I mean, every single person here has a right to have their own opinion, to have their own vote.
But that's not what this says. This isn't taking away anyone's personal opinion or vote. It's just making,
But this puts you in a position where if you disagree with somebody, you could say, oh, well, you're bringing your personal beliefs into it.
you can bring your personal beliefs into it,
It says,
But
no.
this
but
says
not to
you
the
can't.
detriment of the needs
Of
of
the
all
district.
students, right? Of the district. You can have your personal belief.
The focus
But-
here should
but
be
if you're-
all students
Right.
and not,
But if your belief is contrary to the needs of all the students, well then, okay, that's your belief. But if it's better for all students, this instead of your belief, well then it's better for all students. It's not saying you, this, nowhere does this say you cannot have a personal opinion.
You know, the other part of this too is, I mean, so if you talk to, we all have people that we know because we live here. So if I talk to 10 people on my street, just say as an example, and those 10 people have opinions, but that's not representative of everybody. I could talk to 10 people on the street next to me and they would have a different one. So I think it's more about keeping an open mind and being conscious that, yes, these people may be comfortable reaching out to you, but there's 20 people over here that have very varying different opinion that haven't reached out to you because they don't know you. So I think it's just making everyone conscious to think about everyone we represent, not just the people in our circles, not just the people that you're politically affiliated with, personally affiliated with, but always remembering the success or failure of the school system is solely dependent on us considering every single person we represent. And that's all I'm trying to get across, is for everyone to start thinking about that in the way we conduct business. Because I've been on the board a while, and I've been on the board when it's been very successful and very productive, and I've been on the board when it's not been. So I'm really just trying to get everybody refocused. Because if we refocus, we're gonna get things done. Or everyone can argue for a couple more years. So that's why I put it on there. because I don't like to avoid things. I think it's a problem. I'm requesting we put it on there. If the board doesn't feel it's something that we need to have on there, then the board can say no to that board goal.
Okay, we have 5 on this sheet. We're not arguing about 1, right? Do we want to move 1 onto the board, monitor and collaborate on a fiscal plan?
Can I just ask one question first? Sure. Would it make sense to use this as our opening statement and then list the goals underneath it? That would be our overarching belief statement that we, as a board, a cohesive board, and then put the goals underneath it. I'm just.
It's basically non-discrimination policy stuff that we already have.
Well, I'm guessing our bylaws have a statement almost exactly like this anyway.
But I think it's a good reminder for all of us.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay, let's keep that in the back of our mind. I want to make sure this is the only one we're going to talk about. Monitor and collaborate. Any reason not to move that onto the board?
Nope, no.
Monitor the current trends occurring, blah, blah, blah. Begin the process of evaluating site capacity future plans. Align and update board policies with current legislation, blah, blah, blah. So we are going to stipulate that we have accepted the first 3 board goals from the previous years to continue. And that we are looking at board goals 1.18.23, January 18th, 23. So we are only arguing about whether or not.
Discussing.
Say what?
Discussing.
I'd say we're arguing. I mean, you can use whatever you want when I use that word, you can hear it any way you want, but I think we're arguing it. I think we're discussing this one. And the question is, do we want to put this in some form? And Kathy has suggested that it might be a good introduction, without necessarily making it then a specific goal. I'm not sure.
Why would it be okay as an introduction and not as a goal?
Kathy,
I don't know.
Kathy
I
suggested.
was trying
No,
to-
I'm not
participate.
opposed to it, I'm just asking why, what would the difference be? Because John, it sounded like you would be more agreeable to it if it were an
I
introduction.
don't like it at all. I don't like it the way it's stated. The idea is fine. And I think to the degree that it's possible, we are already acting this way. I know sometimes we annoy one another because, for instance, I believe strongly, it's a personal belief, that kids should be challenged an awful lot more than sometimes we do. Personal belief, kids should be challenged. I'm always going to argue for more and more rigor and higher standards. And no goal is going to convince me I shouldn't. And I think that's why I was elected.
I don't think anyone's saying that you shouldn't do that. You're advocating for more rigor but there's also there's a bigger population that we need to consider. So I think that's your strength that you bring. I don't think anywhere here it says that you can't continue to do that. I don't think it's suggesting that.
I think it's suggesting that the whole board should be able to establish something that would shut down someone expressing a belief like that. I think this is why I don't like it. I don't like this. And I think it's redundant. I think we already have it in the Bible. I understand the spirit of this, and I think the spirit of this is true, and it's great. And it should be a guiding principle for the board. Maybe that's supporting what Kathy would like to do. It's just, put it as the headline.
I think it shuts down well-intentioned discussion if we're uncomfortable with the word argument, because to people, I mean, like, I know I have strong opinions about some things, obviously, but I know I'm not the only one. And I don't begrudge somebody else their opinions who comes from a completely different perspective than I do. Because I think that's part of the strength of a board like this, is people bringing different knowledge bases, different perspectives, different things to come together and to have good big conversations about what does it look like to best service our students. Like, I view that as a positive thing. And I know that other people don't see it that way. Other people would prefer to see the board always follow complete lockstep on everything. And I don't think we're gonna agree.
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't think that's fair to the, I don't think that's fair to the spirit of this goal.
That's not what this says at all.
Well, then I apologize if I misconstrued that. But I think, I mean, to me, this makes it sound like we haven't been focused on the needs of all of the students because we've been tied up in political affiliation and religious and personal beliefs, which I don't think is right.
That's no problem. It's an accusation. It's a presumption of guilt. And I understand, we've had some meetings where some of these things have made us look bad as a board, just because it looks like we're not doing anything.
I think that's the point of the goal,
But
is to get us refocused so that we are doing something, we are productive and cohesive and moving forward. We haven't
And cohesive
accomplished anything
doesn't-
in 6 months, nothing.
Cohesive doesn't mean that everyone agrees. Cohesive means that we're all going for the same end result. We're determining what the path is, right? So, meaning that we've so often got so sidetracked with things that the board is never going to take action on. You know, it's not a policy, it's not budget, it's just people going off about stuff. So that's where I'm looking at it as, what are our goals, these goals, and what we're doing should be moving us towards those goals.
Jen, I think Laura.
Can I just make a suggestion?
it's a quick suggestion.
I'm wondering if it's the word establish that is really slapping everybody, because to me, that sounds like, we don't have that, we need to establish. What if it was continue to present as a cohesive Board of Ed, or continue to maintain a cohesive Board of Ed? Because then that shows that, okay, we're always keeping that in mind, but they're not establishing it like it hasn't been done yet. That might just make it more comfortable.
I crossed out establish and put down become, but I'm not sure that's real.
Maintain is a good word.
Aspire to become.
I have no
That's
issues.
cohesive.
Well,
Say what?
I have no issues with maintain.
Maintain,
Yeah. We changed it to
like
maintain.
Laura's wording?
Continue to maintain.
Yeah, it's easier.
Claiming ownership?
She is.
Sorry.
I don't think you take it in the same way.
Right,
Just
just maintain, that's kind of it, yeah.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, that's the old teachers writing goals for the year, so they don't sound like they're not doing it already. I've been there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's good.
Okay, so are we in agreement that, Marissa, did you get, where's Marissa? Marissa's not even here. You get the wording on that, or can you get it from Laura?
I got the word.
Okay, so now we have wording that might be acceptable. Is it acceptable?
Maintain a cohesive Board of Education focused on the needs of all students regardless of political affiliation, religious or personal beliefs. Yes, I do think it's unclear with the way it's worded, whether it's talking about the student's political affiliation or the board's political
Well, this
affiliation.
is just a
But I
quick
prefer,
suggestion.
I am fine with the word maintain.
Okay, right? Yes, no? Kathy?
Yes, I think we just need
Ellen?
to move the regardless up after Board of Ed.
So it doesn't look like it's.
Right, students.
No?
Yes,
no? Yes. Fiona?
Yep.
Okay. We can move on. We will present this to the board. Any reason not to present this to the board? Okay. We will present this to the board. Hey, I always enjoy doing things with a minimum amount of blood on the floor. Social promotion. Now, the board has asked for this. I think there are some questions about social promotion. And we understand the SEL kinds of arguments about it and all that. I think we were supposed to get statistics tonight. Do I remember that? Okay, what are those statistics, please?
Probably helpful to get the packet so you can have some information on it, so you have some numbers.
Oh, I like that.
Thank you. kids.
Pencil bits. I pushed down
Oh,
there.
Yeah, so we're focusing more on middle school at this point. You're getting a packet just on classes failed, so you can see what the trends are. And the different grade levels. Shelley's gonna walk through just some of this information, and at the very end, we have some information on what's being done as far as interventions and supports at this point and what we're hoping to grow.
Absolutely. I started off and I kind of wanted to look after T1, just sort of figure out
Do you want
how
to
our
split
students were
T1
doing.
translation?
What was that?
Trimester 1.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
Our first grading period is trimester 1. So once grades closed, I wanted to figure out how our students were doing. I really don't have a baseline or a context for this district or this school. So I really went into it asking questions. So the first question that I asked myself was, let's get a baseline of how many classes that they're failing. So I pulled out the core classes that students take, and I disaggregated it by grade level. And so that is the first slide that you see. So in grade 6, you have 13 students who failed 2 or more classes. So that is how that graph works out. 2 students failed 3 or more classes and 2 students failed 4 or more classes. We disaggregated for grade 7 and 8 as well, and we found that the highest failure rates were in grade 8. So just in looking at that data slide, the next question was, who are these students? Who do they represent? So that we can start problem solving about why our numbers are what they were. The next few pages that you see are by grade level. And we added in the comparison of students who failed 0 classes and students who failed 1 class to give us a bigger picture of how pervasive the problem was for the entire grade level. And what we found is overwhelmingly in grade 6, 280 of our students passed all of their core classes. We found the trend was similar when we went into grade 7, with 207 kids passing all of their classes. And then in grade 8, again, 206 students passing all of their classes. So once we sort of had a picture of that piece, we wanted to look into the characteristics of the students failing. So we started to look at them by subgroup so that we can understand who are our students who aren't meeting our expectations. So when you go to the next page with the tables on them, there's a yellow table, yellow headlined table to the left and a kind of pinkish red to the right. And that's where it got really interesting because we disaggregated. The yellow is our special education population. The pinkish red are our ELL students. And then on the next page, and then I'll flip back, was our category of chronically absent students. So all of the tables sort of work the same way, and we wanted to see, based on the subgroups, where were most of our students coming from who were failing 2 or more classes. So if you look at our special ed data of our 17 6th graders, and that's in the pink over here, of our 17 6th graders, 6 of them were special education students, which equated to 35% of our students who failed in 6th grade. Further down in the table in grade 7, we found that of the 57 students who failed 2 or more, 11 were special ed students, which was 19%. And in grade 8, of our 83 students, 25%. We used the same method to look at our ELL, and we found again in grade 6, 5.8% were representative of EL students who failed 2 or more, 14% in grade 7, and 8%. Our aha moment as we went through this as an admin team, as we were disaggregating all this, was we went to our chronically absent students. And what we found in our grade 6 41% of kids who failed 2 or more subjects were chronically absent. Now, this data is not disaggregated by, I could be a special ed student who is chronically absent. But when we looked at this, we said, oh my gosh, almost half of our kids, and it makes sense. They're kids that are not in our building, so they're not receiving our instruction. It's not necessarily that they're just not doing things. It's they're not here. They're not getting the instruction and they're not moving forward. And so using the data lens in that way really helped us to start looking at where is our highest leverage area to start working with, and that is our chronically absent. We tagged in with Sue to look at, and she's been a part of all this, to look at our special ed population. And really what we found is our EL students were doing quite well. And these weren't things that we knew up front. It was more or less just digging into the numbers and then continuing to ask, what do they mean? And now this will bring us to the next level of, okay, let's dig down more. Why are they chronically absent? Could it be medical issues? Could it be, is there something going on of why they're not in school? But using this data, we were really able to say, this is where we can make the most bang for our buck. It's getting our kids to school. The last slide, the last page of it, sorry, I'm so used to doing slides. We started to talk, started to look at all the things that we are doing to support our students academically. We do have tiered interventions in ELA and math with dedicated teachers doing those in a very data-based way. We have after school supports, which kids are coming to. We average anywhere between 40 and 60 kids each after school session. We've had to move it all out of the media center because we can't hold that many. And we have certified teachers there. Now, those are students that are opting to come for extra help. We have summer school program. We're working on alternative program for our 7th and 8th grade for students that need something a little bit different. Bilingual program, and we've talked a lot about that. How do we serve the needs of those students? Our SST process, or our team monitoring process, where every cycle we're going through all of the students that teachers are assigned to as a team in our house model and looking at what are their needs, academic, behavioral, or social emotional. We have behavior strategy plans. We're doing week home visits. We have site members coming in, the Torrington Youth Board working on lunch groups with our kids. So we have lots of things that we're bringing in, as well as our school resource officer. He's been amazing with our students. He's actually, for some of our students, he's their trusted adults. Was that quick enough?
That was quick.
Okay.
Now I have some questions, and I'm sure other members. of the
Okay.
committee will too. So, of these kids, these 6th graders, how many of them will not be promoted to the 7th grade next year?
Well, I think it's a little early to tell because these are T1 grades, so they clearly have T2 and T3 to go. I think, speaking a little bit to that, I did disaggregate. Many of them failed by 1 point. So I think in looking through them, and I don't have the exact numbers with you right now, but it wasn't like most of them had a 50. There were many kids that had a 63 or 64, which was very close to passing. So it's looking into what were the factors. The other thing that has impacted a lot is when kids are out, they're out for 5 days. So we've had a lot of students out, they miss things. There's not time in the schedule to make things up a lot of times because there's not common times. And those are all the things that we're looking in as we're thinking of our schedules and what they look like and how do we provide that time.
So last year, if we don't know this year, last year, how many 6th graders did not get promoted to 7th grade?
I don't know that.
Well,
I don't know, do we have that? Or I don't have that data for last year.
I don't know the number too.
We'd have to get that. for
Yeah.
you before we
okay, that's what I thought we were going to get tonight. Am I the only one who expected to get that kind of data tonight? Maybe I am. I mean, the issue is social promotion and what it does for student success and what it does for the success of students who have to be with students who have been promoted only because they got a year older. That's, I think, what we wanted, isn't it? Can we
I haven't been here for the last couple of weeks. I've been asking.
You haven't been here for most of this meeting either.
I know, I've been asking for 5 years for that information.
So
I
anyway,
said, I've been asking for 5 years. for
Yeah.
that information.
it's been on the items for future agenda. It's finally made it. I mean, this is all good and thank you for providing it. But we're really looking for the impact that just moving kids along, if we're really doing it, just moving kids along because they got older and what that does to their well-being and the well-being of other students who are in classes with them, what it does to the way a teacher presents material if a lot of our kids just haven't mastered the skills that they need to be there. So this is useful and will be.
What type of okay, and maybe you could let us know specific data that you're looking for, because I'm not clear
Well,
about what.
the number of kids who have been socially promoted would be one good place to start. The number of kids who fail 2 or 3 subjects, who fail 7th grade English but get moved to 8th grade English, for instance. Isn't that what we wanted?
Can I just, as a 7th grade teacher, I teach the middle of the middle. And some of those kids are just in a spot where they don't want to share anything and they're in their own little world and they might do nothing at all in 7th grade history. But I know there's something in there. I wouldn't hold them back. I move them on and suddenly they wake up and they come visit me and say, I remember when we did that, and I missed that, and I'm doing well this year. It's really hard. They're just in a weird spot, John. I think middle school's different. It is different, and sometimes you can't tell because of where they are emotionally and where they are socially. You might not get anything in the classroom that year, or even for 2 trimesters, and suddenly they wake up and get a clue, and it's wonderful. And you hate to hold them back for a year because of that they're middle schoolers.
Do they succeed in the next year?
Many of them do, I will say. some of-
Okay, you're saying
yeah,
many,
many
and
do.
that's good.
But I
the
don't
question
have
is
the
how many
numbers, so I
don't?
can see wanting to
The
look at
question
numbers.
is how many don't, and what impact does it have on them and on other students? And I don't know what the situation is in the elementary grades either. And I think social promotion is a bigger issue than just the middle school.
I was just gonna say that, because I actually think, I think elementary is a big place, and I would love to see how many teachers recommend, how many students are recommended by their classroom teacher for retention, and how many of those students are ultimately retained, and how many are pushed forward. Like that type of data, I think that would be interesting, because it's different. Like, I think you have some of the same issues afoot in the middle school, high school, and elementary, but in elementary, it's different, the way that it's handled.
We can definitely get that, and I'm sorry, I came away thinking you were looking for middle school, because I thought that the concern was sending kids on to high school that weren't prepared, so.
Okay, well, I
that was-
wasn't except on the screen at the last meeting, so I.
Yeah.
really-
I think it's been on the list for so long that maybe we haven't clarified recently what exactly we're looking for.
Okay, Gary, you want to say something?
And I think, like we've talked about this over and over again, elementary, I've always felt is where it starts. I have 2 family members who have been pushed along and some of them, they can barely read, one of them. Starts in elementary.
We're fixing that here.
I know you are. So again, that's, I think, more than the middle school, because the middle school ends up getting the kids who haven't been held back and can't read. And I've got one, not in my family. But so it was always, my concern was in elementary school, my first meeting on the board 5 years ago, it was very clear that we don't hold people back. That was the response I got. And it's not good for the kids, but rather, I always felt if a kid leaves high school and he can't perform, he can't function, then he's destined for failure by and large, most of the time in life.
Okay, so within those remarks, do we have a better idea of the sort of things we'd like to be able to discuss and have the data to discuss?
Right,
next
so
time?
we're looking for how many recommendations for retention and how many kids are actually retained. And then we can also provide you with the information for some of the mitigating strategies that are in place. Particularly this year, we're doing a lot of work to really beef up our summer school programming so that kids are held very accountable, and it's really rigorous, and it is not just a pass. And Tracy, I don't know if you want to just speak to it really quickly, because you've done some legwork to get some information from other towns.
Sure.
we're just asking the question about how students demonstrate mastery to recover credit in high school. We want to make sure that if a student is receiving credit, that they actually have mastered the content and skills so that they're ready for the next course. So we threw it at Advanced on a survey just to learn what other districts are doing. We're taking a look at the resource that we're using for credit recovery. The resource that we've been using is one that is not been used, or the respondents to our survey. So we're taking a look at that. And starting to have conversations about what we can do to make sure that credit recovery actually means what it's supposed to be.
Thank you.
I'd also be interested, I was reading the statute and it's not super clear to me regarding the parental rights regarding retention.
It's very big.
And because it reads to me like a parent can override our recommendation to retain. So I would be interested in hearing like what you guys, our viewpoint is on that too.
It's really open to
That's an
interpretation.
old problem.
Yeah.
Very.
And also promote.
Okay.
And maybe how many times does the parent decision impact what ultimately is happening?
Those are the things we'd like to see. Thank you, Mrs. Rinaldi. That attendance relation is pretty eye-opening. Think about that and look at that. Thank you. Is it still the rule that we don't give a kid a grade below 50 in the first trimester?
Yes. That's actually in policy.
Yeah, I know. It's been in policy since the superintendent, just before I came on the board the first time. That's why I'm on it. Anyway, thank you. Thank you all for that. And we are moving on. Is there anything in E that we should, we're running into gathering clouds here? Anything in E, 6E? You remember?
No, we're good.
Okay, we're good on that. 6F. Say about 6G.
6G, I can just tell you really quickly, I just have it here on my phone. Throughout the last month, 1,584 people viewed our Facebook page, 12 new people liked our Facebook page, 5 new visits via Instagram. Our posts reached over 4,000 people, 1,230 types of engagement with our posts. We're trending upwards in every category. Our social media posters have been doing a great job getting the word out.
Thank you. Each tag update, student services report, anything?
Not really. We are going to be testing the next group administration. Andrew, do you know the dates yet or about when?
Probably in March.
So we'll be doing the next group. And then after that, I feel like we have a very strong process in place now for the identification of the extraordinary learner piece, the gifted piece. What comes next is the talented piece. So that will be something I begin to talk a little bit about. It's much harder to figure that out. So you're talking about children with extraordinary ability in art, music, performing arts, and how you measure that and how you determine which students are truly talented it's really difficult. So we would have to really talk about what would be the way to identify that. So that's why we started with the easy one, which is scores. And it's something that we can talk about moving forward if you feel it would be nice. I know that this district has such strong creative arts, so it would really be nice if we could identify some children that are truly talented in the area.
Just get an update at the next meeting about the programming that we're making available to the kids that have already been identified.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Alliance updates?
We just submitted our second report of the year and we are meeting with our rep in March and we're waiting for the governor to talk about budget to see if we will get more money next year. Keeping our fingers crossed.
More money, that was on the front page of the paper.
So we are hoping.
Okay. Topics for future meetings. Okay, we have a long list. We will just pick, we know we're gonna do more on social promotion. And we will maybe new courses. We'll figure out something. There will be an agenda for the next month's meeting. Comments for the good of the order. So,
Actually, one thing, I ran into a teacher in the district last night and she was talking to me about the LEAP program that she's part of. And she really was, it was great talking to her because I don't think I've talked to anyone that actually participates. And she said it's been rewarding and eye-opening, puts everything, a lot of things into perspective. And then that you're seeing great results with the students, so that's all I have.
Jeff, been around long enough to this meeting to say anything or?
Not quite.
Not quite. Gary?
Great meeting.
Right.
Thank you. It's good to see you guys.
Kathy? Ellen?
I want to thank Shelley. I think she did a phenomenal job and more to come.
Yes. Brian, anything to say? So,
Yeah, thank you to Shelley and thank you, Erin, so much for coming out and speaking to the new course proposals. It's really exciting stuff.
Kim?
Ditto, I was gonna say, well done, Shelley, and nice courses there, it's great.
All set? Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
I wish I could take those courses.
Tracy?
All set. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, that's pretty much it then. And I would like to just end by thanking everybody who presented tonight for all the information and for the hard work that goes. It's not just sitting here for 5 minutes or even 15 or 20 minutes. It's everything that goes into making, for instance, that very comprehensive report and the English courses and so on. Thank you all for that. I am looking for a motion to adjourn from one of the members.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, policy, sir.
Ellen, can we just have 2 minutes so we can get
Yep.
something set up for the public?
All in favor? Aye. Marissa has. Well, the minutes. So moved. Aye. So before we go into public participation, I just want everyone to know a policy has not been drafted or agreed upon as yet. That's why we're here to discuss policy. Okay. So first, Robin. Oh, wait, I have to read the little. Members of the public and staff may bring to the committee's attention information, ideas, or matters of concern related to all the duties and responsibilities of this committee. This committee will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. The time for individual remarks will be apportioned according to the number of speakers and be limited to 5 minutes per speaker unless extended by the chair.
So my name is Robin Laversis and I am currently teaching capstone here at the high school. I live at 106 Sycamore Drive in Torrington. So I'm here tonight to express my concerns about the proposed dress code policy being both gender and culturally insensitive. Tonight, I'm here to speak out about mostly 2 items in particular that stand out to me. There's a lot that, I don't agree with, but I just focused on 2 for tonight. It is our responsibility to know our community and our students. Student dress codes should support equitable educational access and help to create a safe and welcoming environment. Student dress codes should not reinforce or increase marginalization or oppression of any age, of any group. I'm going to start with head coverings. What is the issue with students wearing head coverings? Is it because of safety? As a staff and as an admin team in the past, and in some of our committee meetings, also with our former SRO officer, Dave Cooper, we found that hats actually helped during some investigations and did not block our ability to see a face. We decided as a staff and admin team to focus on hoods as a safety measure, if that's what this is all about. So headbands, scarves, do-rags, and other head coverings do not impact student learning. In fact, data, if you do some research, I'm sure you have, data shows that students of color are disciplined more for wearing certain clothing or head coverings. We chose to put more of our energy into our continuous improvement, chronic absenteeism, and improving our teaching and learning. In fact, disciplining students for wearing head coverings and expressing themselves creates a hostile environment. Students should not face unnecessary barriers to school attendance. This could also lead to shaming or humiliating certain students at times. Though it might not be your intention, we need to be culturally inclusive in our policies and ensure our actions don't negatively impact certain groups more than others. So if safety is the main concern, perhaps the new language could read that head coverings must allow the face to be visible and not interfere with the line of sight for students and staff. By not allowing students to wear spandex or tight-fitting clothing can and will lead to body shaming. Students should be able to dress comfortably without worrying about actual unnecessary disciplinary action. We need to ensure that all students are treated equitably and understood for who they are. If a student is disciplined because of how they dress, they do lose valuable class time, while hours of resources and school staff are focused on policing an insensitive policy. And I leave you with just one final thought. Please ensure that all of our students are welcome and accepted at Torrington High School.
Julian? Sorry, I would butcher your last name, so that's why I didn't say it.
It's all right, everyone does. My name is Julian Benuelas. I live on 211 Cedar Lane here in Torrington. I'm a junior at Torrington High School, and I have been a student in the Torrington School District since 3rd grade. I'm an honor level student who has 0 infractions in my transcript, and I would like to talk about the new dress code proposal. I would like to outline a sentence from the current dress code policy. It reads, students are treated equitably regardless of gender/gender identification, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, body type / size, and religion. Keep this in mind. I sourced testimony from a peer who liked to remain anonymous about her experience with being dress coded. She told me, quote, I was dress coded for the first time in the hallway and the second time in class. The first time it was for wearing a tube top, and I don't even own tube tops. The second one, I was just told I needed to cover up without context. It was kind of embarrassing for me because it made me feel like there was something wrong with my body, even though I can't control that. I think I was definitely dress coded for my chest because I was wearing tank tops that didn't show my stomach or anything. If this is the case, I think it's extremely wrong because there's no reason to put regulations on people's body when their physical build is out of their control. I think I shouldn't be dress coded for wearing the same thing a girl with a smaller chest could wear, end quote. Her experience reveals that the current policy that says the body and gender do not determine a dress code violation is not being upheld. The infraction only happened because of her body and gender, she said it herself. The new proposed dress code is unnecessary because it over-polices our school. Simple things such as belts, headbands, and rings could be a reason why kids would be dress coded. In the proposed plan, it says that any, quote, metal belts or combination of metal and leather belts, end quote, being worn would violate the dress code. This ridiculous and needless addition to our rules would create another thing teachers have to look out for. It is simply overkill and would waste the valuable classroom time teachers have with their students. Not only would this waste time, but many of us are well-behaved students who never get in trouble and follow the rules. The possibility that I, for instance, could get a mark on my transcript for simply wearing a belt as I am now or a ring is absurd and ludicrous. Not to mention, the solution proposed for getting rid of backpacks and coats in the classroom is impossible to achieve at our school. The hallways are severely overcrowded during passing time. The lockers are too small to fit regular backpacks, and just the utter size of our building makes it very difficult for a student to make it to their locker and to the next class in time. Adding in more passing time to compensate for this would again take away from teachers' instructional time. In my experience, When kids are using their lockers, which is a rare occurrence, it takes up too much of the hallway and makes traveling from class to class very difficult. It is already hard to make the class on time because of the sheer amount of people walking our hallways. And to finish, I would like to remind everybody here that the taxpayers of Torrington help pay for this committee to exist. And because of that, their wishes and interests are being respected, listened to, and acted upon by this committee. I'd also like to invite and encourage the members of this board to our building on a regular school day to see what it's like firsthand. Thank you.
Lydia?
Good evening. My name is Lydia Crespo, and I am a resident here in Torrington at 132 Fairlawn Drive. And I currently go
Thank you.
And I currently go to school at Academy of Science and Innovation in New Britain. And I would like to discuss the proposed dress code. I would like to state before I get into everything that in my school we have uniforms and other rules that are strictly enforced throughout the day. Anything that is a violation of the dress code is written up as a referral immediately. No exceptions are allowed. As stated in my school's dress code, we are not allowed to wear hoodies, shorts, hats, thin straps, belly shirts, and slogans that are not appropriate to school. Before coming here, I have looked over the proposed dress code policy, and it has come to my attention that hoodies are allowed. Administration in my school has issued that hoodies are a major safety hazard. We were once allowed to wear hoodies, but due to the horrendous events happening around our country, they decided to ban them. I see this as a positive move. Students won't be able to hide their faces and can be identified immediately if necessary. Students and myself do not mind this rule because other dress code clothing is still available. Furthermore, something else has caught my eye in the dress code, that backpacks are allowed in the classrooms. At my school, anyone seen with a backpack is told to put it in their lockers. Backpacks can be seen as dangerous, and when a student is carrying their backpack to classes, there might be a chance that they are holding something dangerous that could harm an adult or another student. Today, I brought what I bring to school, and I'd like to show you that students really do not need to carry around backpacks. So in the beginning, before we start everything, we have to put our backpacks in our lockers, and we take out this is everything I need for the day. It has all my classes, and sometimes students split up into two binders that have some classes for one day and some classes for other. As you can see, it is not a lot. We carry this to every single classroom every single day. And the backpacks, I believe, are too bulky to move around, and again, something the student could be holding something dangerous. By allowing me to speak here tonight, I am able to fully express my opinion about school's dress code and why it might need some changing to better fit the safety and protection of the students like me. If it's either not allowing the students to carry backpacks around or not allowing students to wear hoodies, every change can make someone's life safer. I thank you for your time, and I'm always open to questions.
Thank you. Josh, can we go to Jason, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, Jason Lafreniere, special education teacher at Torrington Middle School. In regards to the dress code policy you'll be discussing tonight, I'd like to reiterate that the policy needs to be enforceable, and followed. Putting more restrictions will not necessarily bring about greater compliance. In fact, it will tie up administration with dealing with disciplining students and keeping them from being in classrooms and supporting teachers with curriculum or more serious behavior issues. In the current policy in the current proposed policy that was looked at last week, sections have been out due to it not applying to our population. The biggest area of concern for me as a teacher is the current practice of students walking around with book bags and coats and not using lockers. We are building a new building that I believe will have lockers. With the suggested policy, that would be a waste of money or a need to revisit this policy in the future. More concerning is that allowing the carrying of these things could diminish safety. We are giving people a greater opportunity to conceal and bring into the building items that could be dangerous to themselves or others. When looking at the policy, you're basically stating everything a student can't do. Why not start to take a positive stance and state what they should do? This was something we tried to do at the building level last year with the expectations / guidelines, whatever you want to call them. Please be careful to not introduce sexuality into the dress code, and be careful to not discriminate against one gender or another. If you want to address dress code, instead of taking this step to a more restrictive, specific and prescriptive one that will be nearly impossible to enforce, and just implement a school uniform. If the state can enforce this and make it part of the culture at the technical schools, what is preventing us from doing the same? This is a solution to a policy that I'm sure is going to go on endlessly with discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Is there anyone else on the line?
No one else on the line.
I have two to read in. I received emails. One is from Rachel Carroll. I don't have her address, but I have an email out to her to get it. Why kids don't use their lockers. There are not enough functioning lockers for all the students enrolled. This is common knowledge to the school administration, the teachers, the students, and parents, apparently not to the Board of Ed. Also ban backpacks because of safety issues, ? If a kid brings a gun or any weapon in their backpack, but has to put the backpack in the locker, do you think that will stop the student from using said gun or weapon? I do not think so. If they brought it in with the intent to use it, it will be used. If my children must carry their MacBooks along with books, notebooks, and other learning tools without a backpack, I will renege my laptop agreement. If the laptop gets dropped or knocked out of their hands, that is on the policy instituted by the Board of Ed. This is not the 1970s or 1980s. There's much more to carry, including expensive technology. You say, well, they have cases for the laptops. My son's case zipper broke the second week of school, and he was told there are no replacements, so the above scenario is possible. I cannot understand why the opinions of your school administrators are not valued or considered. And everyone wonders why administrators leave so quickly. I would too if I did not feel respected or appreciated. Many teachers wear leggings, aka spandex, again, a term that went out in the 1980s. Will their dress code change too? Fun fact, spandex type of material, not an article of clothing. So this would ban items including any pants would stretch, any shirt would stretch, or any article of clothing made with spandex that is labeled on the content label of the article of clothing. In fact, many leggings do not even contain spandex this day and age. No headbands, really? Every little girl in an elementary school called. Name belt buckles seems pretty specific and targets a certain population. No metal or leather belts can be worn. Isn't that most belts? So you rather have the sagging pants? So are we going to ban shoelaces or socks that can be loaded with heavy objects and using the same way as a belt? P.S. Sagging pants with underwear showing is not mentioned anywhere in the dress code. So I guess that is okay. Interesting that a look used mostly by boys was completely overlooked, but everything a girl would wear is targeted. Gender specific, sexist much? Okay, shorts and/or blouses that reveal the abdomen, chest, or undergarments. No shorts that display upper thighs. Upper thigh to me and upper thigh to someone else can be completely different. I think that needs to be considered. And rant. The next one is from Carrie Hona. Hi, my name is Carrie Hona. I live at 603 New Harwinton Road. I am a city councilwoman and I am the mother of 3 daughters, one each in elementary, middle, and high school. I am writing to strongly oppose any large-scale changes to our dress code policy. We have many issues in our school. Most of you on the board have made tremendous strides towards making big changes. The way our students dress, however, is not an issue. I've sat many days in the pickup line at the elementary, middle, and high schools, and no one is parading out in their undergarments. My children always report that they do not see this type of dress in their mainstream, and if they do, no one notices or cares. In fact, study after study has proven that strict dress codes are completely irrelevant to academic performance or student behavior, especially when implemented in a vacuum. This year, we have all dealt with a major change to our cell phone policy. I was in support of the pouches, and I still am. I'm happy to see the reduction in the use of phones in classes and text from my children in the middle of their workday. The evidence time and time again shows that eliminating cell phones in class improves test scores and classroom interaction. That was a change worth making. However, enforcing this policy is proving very difficult as students find more and more ways around the rules. We need to focus on fully enforcing that policy and making it effective before we try to introduce any other major changes in the lives of our students. And our educators are barely hanging on. They're making up for a couple of years of lost education time, a lack of appropriate staffing, a lack of funding, and enough time to practice their crafts and really connect with their students. As a community, we need to back off and let them do their jobs. It is easy to say that as long as dress codes are applied universally across all genders, they are legal. However, the practical implication is that the clothing items targeted in the proposed dress code options, shorts, mini skirts, or pants that reveal the upper thigh, shirts that reveal the abdomen or chest, and spandex garments allowed only if they are covered by shorts and or skirts, are all clothing items primarily targeted to women. The result is that 90% of the dress code is directed to our female students, and those girls are made to think it is their responsibility to ensure their classmates aren't distracted by them and their classroom isn't disrupted by their clothing choices. Saying that a body part is disruptive means the body part matters to others, which reinforces the idea that the body part should be important to the wearer too. I do not want my daughters worried about whether their abdomen or thigh looks good or is disruptive to someone else. That would lead to self-consciousness that actually has a negative impact on their educational experience. Studies show that self-awareness about one's appearance leads to worse performance on math tests, a greater likelihood of developing an eating disorder, low self-esteem, and depression. Letting students make a choice about what is appropriate to them and their family, what is comfortable on their body, and what makes them feel good is the key to ensuring a positive experience at school, not restricting what they wear to what the few of you on the board think is appropriate for school. Furthermore, limiting scarves, bandanas, headbands, kerchiefs, and athletic sweatbands has a potential to lead to instances of racial bias, as boys of color are more often disciplined for wearing such items. As a practical matter, there actually are not enough lockers for students right now. I know the community fought hard to keep them in the new school, so if you want to mandate backpacks and jackets get stored, let's revisit that when there is a new school and plentiful lockers. Torrington has been a leader recently. In the past 5 years, we have merged elementary schools to create a more equitable experience for our youngest learners. We voted to build a state-of-the-art middle and high school. We took a bold stand to eliminate cell phone distractions from our classrooms despite tremendous resistance. We can continue to move forward and be a leader by limiting our dress code to only focusing on clothing and accessories that impact safety. After that, we can get back to focusing on what we need to, improving our educational offerings, experience, and outcomes. Again, I am sorry I'm not present in person for your policy meeting, but I'm happy to discuss my thoughts further and can be reached. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Sorry, we were late.
That's okay. If you come to the table, state your name and address, please.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Lydia Babbitt. I live at 69 Wadhams Avenue here in Torrington. My daughter is a junior here. Frankly, first thing I'm going to do is stand up. I wore this to work today. I work at the corporate headquarters of O&G Industries, where I have been for 27.5 years. This is pretty much what I wear to work every day. You'll note I'm wearing leggings. I am comfortable, I am productive. I am not a distraction. I think that one of the things that my daughter said to me was that we need to be preparing these children for the corporate world. Well, the corporate world pretty much no longer cares what you're wearing. They care what you're doing. And my experience at a place where I have to meet with the owners of a multi-million-dollar corporation on a daily basis is that they don't care what I'm wearing, as long as I'm doing my job. If these kids are in their classrooms and doing their jobs, I don't really see what the issue is. Do you have any questions for me? Great. Thank you very much for your time.
So we're gonna continue. We're not gonna do the dress code first because there's two other policies that we don't have and we used to have.
Do you want, yeah, do you want to do these next two as a bundle if you want, if that's okay with you as the chair? Just because these two policies are part of our crosswalk, they're part of our next series. They're policies that Shipman had in their model policy index and we don't have them. And they both kind of refer to Laura's world, so we consulted with her and she's here to answer any questions. They are things that we are doing in both cases, just we did not have the policy to back them up, so.
No, just as Kim said, it's, we've been doing this. We administer alternate assessments for students with disabilities for all their district and statewide assessments. That's a practice that's been occurring for as long as I can remember. Laura can speak better to that. And then the equitable identification of tax students, which we've started doing.
So really quickly, the first one, which is talking about the alternate assessments. Back in the day, children could be exempt from testing. That's no longer allowed, but they do have the alternate assessment. And there are specific guidances that we need to follow. There's a checklist that the teams need to go through, certain criteria that a child can be eligible to take the CTAA, which is the alternate. So we have that in place and we follow that. It's a small percentage of the students that qualify are taking that. As far as the gifted and talented go, this was taken right from the tag, right from the guidelines for talented and gifted. And the practice that I put in place when I came, as far as the identification of the extraordinary learners, came right from that as well. So if you read through this, it'll look a lot like what we have already put in place. So we just didn't have the policy.
So to reiterate, this is what we're doing. We just didn't have a policy. Questions from the committee members first. Almost.
Almost, it's good. I tried.
My only question was on this, the second policy. There's a little piece here, no.
The optional part?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Sue and I talked about that and just thought simply because, the gifted and talented, that's something that we're,
Right.
the recommendation would be to go with the superintendent or designee will develop the administrative regulations detailing the services to be provided. And since Laura's providing the board with a tag update on a regular basis, I think that would fall in line. You would all get that communication on a regular basis. And that way, as we expand on the program, enhance the program, we don't have to update the policy every time we do that. So the suggestion would not be to detail the specifics in the policy, but to use that statement that says the superintendent or designee would develop the guidelines. But certainly it's up to the board, whatever you want to do, but that would be the thought.
And I think as we continue to develop it and expand, however far we want to go with it, that our practices, is that what you, procedures?
Yeah.
Like we already put one in place for extraordinary learners. We do the same with talented and we'll revise it as we need to, or add additional grades or whatever we're going to be doing.
And you'll get that information during the regular tag update that Laura provides. So you'll still have all that information on a regular basis. We just won't have to update the policy every month.
So then it would read the superintendent designee will develop administrative regulations.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Jeff,
I get to go?
you get to go.
Awesome. Several decades ago, when I was in elementary schools, the talented and gifted program came and went several times. Does having the policy ensure that it has to stay, or does the policy just let you remove the policy and re-add it? How does that work?
So the way that the law is, we're required to identify children that may be talented or gifted, but districts are not required to provide services.
Gotcha.
So it really is up to the district. I think we were fortunate that the board felt it was something that we wanted to look at to do. So we're starting slowly and have added a little bit. And now we have a group administered IQ test which we didn't do before I came. And so we're beginning to build on it. But as far as whether or not we need to continue the program, ultimately that will be up to the board.
The policy identifies, but then the board decides.
Correct.
If the program continues and the policy just lives there. You're identified, but there may not be a program for you.
Right.
Thank you for the clarification.
But we have been advocating for that for many years. Glad to have it back.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything else?
Sorry. In the past, we've talked about how the kids were identified for the TAC program. There was an IQ test given. But in reading this, it looks like there can be other ways of identification.
Yeah, there are.
Okay. Are we using those or are we simply relying on IQ?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
what we do is the first thing we do is the tests are given, the scores come in, Andrew gives the scores to me, and we go through, and our first cut score is the IQ. So
Okay.
it needs to be 126 or above.
Okay.
And then after that, then we go through the additional criteria, which I did have up and now I don't. But we basically then at that point kick it back to the school. And it goes to the principal, who goes to the teachers, both current and, like from the year before. And we're looking for that this student is always in the top 10%, in the class of whatever the assignments are.
For the student that tested with an IQ of 126 or above. What
Yes.
about a student that tested with 124?
No,
They're out?
They do not qualify, correct.
And that's a district decision?
Yeah, but actually, there are a lot of districts that require 130 and above. But when we looked at it, this was appropriate for Torrington. So that's what we're going with at this point. We discussed it and.
It just seems like there could be kids that fall through the cracks.
Yeah,
if it's a
well, and you know what? The
124,
whole
125.
point of the whole thing is really not about the identification of. It's the fact that we should be differentiating for all children, even the children that are performing above grade level. So that's
Right.
what this is all about. It's, let's look at what's being provided to these students. Oh, they may be higher functioning students, so what are we gonna do for them?
Right.
What can we do for them so that they're enriched, so that they
Right,
wanna
so
be
they continue
engaged?
to grow.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's more about that than the identification, but the law requires us to identify. What we don't wanna do is we don't wanna start identifying at 120 and above. A kid moves to another town, and I will tell you that pretty much across the state, it's more around 130.
Okay.
So we don't want it to be, well, I was talented and gifted in Torrington and I'm not in another community.
Okay.
So that's why we have the criteria.
So consensus of the committee to the full board? Dress code. Let's chat. I believe from the board meeting that we had, that the dress code that we're leaning toward is on page 12 and 13.
I think we had leaned towards Shipman's sample policy, but we hadn't had any substantive discussion on what changes we would make.
Correct.
We included everything that we could remember had been talked about. So the shipment policy that had been provided with some suggested edits from the administration at our previous policy meeting when it came up, not the full board meeting, but the previous policy meeting, there was some conversation about just adding a letter E to what we currently have, but that was before we realized that Shipman had this policy. I do have that if anybody wants to reference that. And then the language from the handbooks. Also in your policy.
Parent and students sign off on all handbooks.
Correct.
Elementary?
Yes.
Your child too? I seem to remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. start with the committee.
I make a suggestion that we go through them letter by letter and discuss each one. Jump around.
So do you wanna? My thought is 12 and 13. And we can, there are red lines, but we can still read through it, so if we wanna adjust from there. So,
You say 12 and 13.
yeah,
Yeah, I see 12 and 13 at a time.
page 12 and 13
Oh,
of the
pages
packet.
12 and
Yes.
13. I thought you were looking at number items.
No,
numbers,
Sorry,
nothing.
page 12 and 13. So,
So we're not looking at 10 and 11? We're just
well, 10
going
and
with the
11 is the same,
recommendations?
except for 12 and 13 is just red lines, so we're gonna go through everything anyway.
Everything that's on 10 and 11 is on 12 and 13.
Right.
Right.
It's just red
But
lines.
it's already red line,
But
so.
we're gonna ignore that and just
Oh,
go through it all.
Right.
I mean, not ignore it, but because it's crossed out doesn't mean we can't talk about it.
Right. Okay. And I believe it's crossed out because this is happening.
No, this is what
This is
the,
allowed.
what the central office recommendation was to the
Right.
board. Was, because you said you discussed this, Sue, right, with
With the
staff?
admins,
Right,
right?
right.
And then the things that are taken out are, wouldn't be prevented to, so coats, jackets could be worn as outerwear, could be worn throughout the day. Head coverings could be worn. Student lockers could be used or not used. Most students do not use lockers. And then F is, taking that out because then there's no worry about metal belt buckles or leather belts. And then the spiked studded bracelets doesn't seem to be an issue at this time. L, staff and students wear tank tops or sleeveless shirts. So that would be taken out of the prohibitive items. Spandex garments would be taken off. Many students and staff wear spandex items. And then the backpacks would be permitted to be carried between classes simply because it's very difficult to get from the third to the first floor of high school, for example. It's a practical kind of thing. And students don't use their lockers.
So we'll start with the first one. So right now, coats, jackets, all that's in is currently permitted.
So I have a question because kids have to wear coats. So what is the actual situation with the lockers? Do we have a locker for every student at the high school? I'm not asking if they choose to use it. I'm asking, do we physically have one?
Yes.
So theoretically, so people could put their coats in their locker.
But the kids don't have a home room, so. But every child is assigned a locker.
No. Jess's question was, are there as many lockers as there are students? The answer is yes.
But no
We
child
only
is assigned a
assign
locker.
lockers to students who request a locker.
What percentage of the, and I'm not holding you to this, but approximately
A
what
very,
percentage of the students?
A very, very low percent.
Okay.
So the issue is not that we don't have lockers for all the students. The issue is that current practice is most students choose not to use a locker. Now, what would the impact on the scheduling be during the day if we were to say that we do want kids to have lockers? Like, I know they don't have homeroom. So what would that look like in practice?
Mr. Marchand and I discussed this. We would have to increase passing time between classes in order to accommodate students being able to get from, for example, the first floor of the A building back to a locker on the third floor of the B building, and back of the A building for a class.
What would be the impact at the middle school? Are there enough lockers?
So what is the passing time now at the high school? 3 minutes, right?
4.
4. So I guess I'm having a hard time understanding how we move 2,000 kids before in 3 minutes, but we can't move 1,200 in 4 minutes. It just seems
I choose not to. I'm in the administrative.
I'm just curious, yeah.
At the middle school, are there enough lockers for each child?
Yes, they are, and all students are assigned a locker. The majority of students choose not to use a locker. The lockers aren't necessarily, the schedule rotates, so if you assign a locker in one side of a building, they could end up in the other side of the building. As an administrator in the building, it creates kids roaming throughout the building for reasons that you don't know. It's harder. So like if I know their schedule is science to math and they end up over on the other side of the building, you know that they're not supposed to be there. With lockers, it increases them asking teachers to go out to the lockers. It increases congregation in the hallway. It increases packs of students at a locker. You go over and it's like, well, I'm taking these out of my locker, but it really doesn't. So it increases us having to prevent behaviors that we don't want to have to prevent. When we don't have the lockers, kids carry their belongings, they move it to the next class, and we don't see those issues. We also don't see the issues of kids who think they closed the locker, it didn't really close the locker, things get taken out of the locker. So we really don't have to worry about those things. So I think of all things COVID, no lockers has been the greatest blessing to the middle schools.
I'm going to go to Gary first.
Lockers, this is a quick question, which Gary will probably answer. How much money are we spending on lockers in the new building?
Oh, God, it was a lot.
And why are we doing that if nobody's gonna use them?
Well, we decided in the building committee meeting that they should start being used. We decided that.
Well, we have to make a decision now. Either we don't put lockers in the new building or they start using them in the existing building, because it's millions of dollars that we're gonna waste by putting lockers in this new building. It's crazy. They're not gonna be used.
That's a building committee.
Right, I mean.
Well, it's an issue.
You can't bring
Yeah,
it
right.
back.
It
Correct.
We can bring it to the building committee to be discussed again.
Well, we're not gonna change it at this point, so it's the purchase.
Then we have to change the policy. We can't spend millions of dollars on lockers that aren't gonna be used. That's crazy. It's embarrassing.
Like Jason said, start using them when the new school opens.
Well,
Go ahead, Gary.
we're doing, we always do, let's wait till that. There is you can even, I can hire a consultant to figure out how you can maybe change the schedule next year, not with this year, to accommodate the usage of the lockers. It's just gonna take some effort. And it actually goes back to our, every policy we're discussing tonight, which is how do we enforce it?
Right, but we're talking
I
about
know,
the
I'm not
policy.
finished the back, or the
For now.
locker thing. I think for next year, it has to be thought out, because we are gonna have lockers.
Right, so
So-
if this committee decides and brings it to the full board, and that's what we charge the administrators to do for the following year.
I think that's something to do this, that's the only, in my opinion, to get it done properly, give them time to plan it. And
Yeah.
like Andrew has to worry about the timing and but, the safety issue is another issue.
Go ahead.
I just have a question for the group. Are we trying to decide on safety versus distraction? Like, what's the purpose of the policy, and do you intend to implement it this year or for next year? Because all of these questions that the public brought up, that have been brought up in these meetings, and I'm new, but it really seems like it's you're following for safety purposes or you're following for distraction. Because the policy is written kind of for both ways. It talks about things in both manners, but you can't satisfy everybody trying to chase both tails. So what is the will of the board or this policy committee? Are you trying to solve for safety, in which case the hoodies and things like that? You take care of all the safety issues, and anything else somebody wants to wear, it is what it is. Or are you trying to solve for distraction? If you're solving for distraction, that leads you more down the road of a far more strict policy. And if you go that far, not that I'm in favor of one or the other, but you have to look at uniforms at that point. I'm not trying to bring, I know this is early in policy, but which direction does the board want to go, just so we can constructively go through this? Because it'll be hard to go through it if you haven't got a direction. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Without a direction, it's like, which way are we going?
I'll go back to
it out.
I'm going back to my corner.
Before I go to you, anyone else that hasn't spoken, do you have anything to say, Glenn?
Me, no. Not yet.
Not yet.
I would like to applaud Lydia Crespo.
I would
Yes,
too.
Yes,
Yes.
Lydia did a very nice job, and I think that she was very brave and courageous getting up there and sharing a very unpopular opinion.
Right, as a student.
Yep.
As a student.
That's,
She's still here? That was a.
No, she's
she's not.
Yeah.
So if I'm next.
You're next.
So
We're only talking
Mrs.
about
Ferguson, I
A.
am talking about that. But I think there needs to be some context to this, because the last meeting we had, the whole discussion was, we don't think we have a problem. A lot of people don't think we have a problem. And I know there's teachers, I know there are men, I know there are security officers who have great concerns about how we manage this policy. I'm gonna ask our assistant superintendent, because this is your policy, this is your committee. Do you see a problem with dress code in the way our children dress in our high school system?
That's why we're doing this.
Well, no, it's not. I want to know.
So at the last policy meeting, I did share that I had conversations with the security associates who had expressed some concern about feeling uncomfortable, particularly in the way that they needed to address female students who they felt were particularly scantily dressed, and they were uncomfortable approaching these young ladies. So yes.
So the sexuality, and I'm going to continue with this. So we do have a problem, and I'm not going to turn this into a gender thing or a sexuality thing, because there's arguments on both sides. I've read every single study there is. But, and again, it's not the majority of the children, but if we don't adhere to that policy with relation to any one of these things, which we haven't been, do we have a problem at the high school? Do you see a problem at the high school dress code adherence?
Well, I think I just answered your question.
So why you didn't answer? Okay, so you do. Okay.
Well, I shared with you what staff members, what those particular staff members have shared with me. I have been on campus and been surprised by some of the things I've seen some students wearing. Yes, but you're talking to somebody who grew up in the Dress for
I know,
Success
I know.
era. You remember that book,
Yeah.
Dress for Success?
Yeah.
Now,
At the last meeting, it seemed as if many people thought we were crazy at this board to bring it up. And I'm just wondering if it's just the board that's crazy, or if it's a need to tighten like we're trying to do, so that the teachers can teach and the enforcement effort could be greater. I don't know how to do that, to be perfectly honest, but we'll find out tonight. There's so many holes that we can punch in every one of these, and teachers have told me many of them. It's not anecdotal.
So that's why we're.
It's not specific to A. Sorry.
Specific to A.
I'd like to suggest that due to the possible scheduling impacts and just the realistic aspects of what it would look like to institute mid-year a use, all of a sudden everybody has to use their lockers, which I think we've cleared up the confusion over whether or not that's possible. It is possible. We have plenty of lockers. I think that we should pull out A and whichever was the one about backpacks, pull those out and look at revising this policy over the summer with an eye towards re-including those and instructing the administrators to schedule appropriately next year.
John? Are you? in agreement with that? What
We're in
Jessica
this
said.
discussion until
No.
the summer.
We knew you'd be in favor.
That's not what it said.
Only things are relative
Only
to what we
A
have to
and
figure
right
out.
now. Are you okay with taking them out of the
I wanted to be
policy
here
at
till
the moment?
midnight, but I'll go along with taking them on.
Thank you, you're so generous. Kathy?
I am, as long as we revisit it.
Okay,
in the summer.
so let's move on to B. So this one reads funny. So. What did we say last time?
It's the one that's worded differently than the
Right,
other
so-
ones, right? That, and.
So it shouldn't be shall not be.
Yeah.
Well, it only reads funny because the first sentence is crossed out.
Right,
First two
Yeah.
sentences. It makes total sense if you don't cross that out. So the question is, and this kind of goes to Jeff's question, is what is the intent? In my mind, I wonder what is the intent of banning certain head covering? Like, I actually agree with what Robin had said about like the things that cover your face that make it difficult to see your face. I think that's a problem. And so that to me speaks to what's, it maybe doesn't speak to some of these other things. But I'm curious to know why. I mean, we did also have some of these things listed in our student handbooks up until fairly recently. So I think we may want to talk about why those things, why Shipman would include those things and why we had included those things in the past too.
I think Shipman needs. There are lawyers and they need to represent us, so they need to have everything covered, you know what I mean? So if we went with the following, prohibits the following from where during the academic school day would be any head covering that prohibits both, like, yeah. That be good compromise, Jen?
Yeah, that obscures the face. So that would mean a baseball cap would be okay.
I wouldn't think so.
Well, that's what I
Well, that's
see
what
their
I
face.
think.
I
I
wouldn't.
wouldn't
This is
think
where
so.
you have to get specific though, right? Because that's.
I don't think you have to get specific. If you have a baseball cap on and it obscures the face, well, then it obscures the face. If you have a hood on and it doesn't obscure the face, then you can wear the hood, but if it obscures the face, then that's a violation.
But that's not enforceable.
We're getting back to the.
I think maybe
Can we touch
fashion.
Yeah, can I?
You can raise your hand and I can pick on you.
Okay.
Go
Choose
ahead.
you. You can choose you.
The language might read something like this, perhaps. Head coverings must allow the face to be visible and not interfere with the line of sight of students and staff. So that means they can wear head coverings, but they just can't be, they have to allow the face to be visible.
What would be an example of something that wouldn't allow for that?
Like
Do you
a
think? And that's-
scarf or rag, you know, a wooden, did you say wooden?
Wouldn't, right. Or
Really,
what-
there isn't, like, that's what we found,
The
you
hood,
know,
right.
the hoods were the only, you know, even most of the times you consider this, but the hoods is what we decided to worry about for safety reasons. But as far as kids expressing themselves with other, we just, and I'm only speaking for some of us, you know, but not all of us agree, but that it doesn't impact learning, and we didn't want to spend our time and energy policing that, because it's a lot. And there's nothing, you know, wrong with letting the kids express themselves.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Why do kids, I mean, I guess I'm old fashioned. I don't know why kids need to wear a hat in school. A hat, a hood, anything that covers. I mean, I get the headbands, I agree, like kids wear, you know, when, so why do we need to wear baseball caps or hoods in school? And I'm just asking because that's, you know, that's a little bit of old fashioned.
But you take your hat off when you enter the
Right,
building.
you take your hat off when you
Yeah.
enter a building. You know, I mean, that every man in this room is gonna do that when they come in, you know, I just think that that's courtesy.
It's a stylistic choice. I mean, I think the downside, so I remember hearing years, and this is before I was even on the board, that there was concern with gang colors. in bandanas. So I don't know if that is still a concern. Like, I don't know if there are things like that that need to be considered that may have been the reason for some of these things couldn't be put in there at some point. Hats, you can conceal things under them.
Right.
I mean, so there's pros and cons. Personally, I think the hoods are the biggest concern because you hide your earbuds under that, you hide your face, like it's really easy to completely hide your identity, which I think is a security issue.
Is there anything wrong with bullet point number 3 under the current TMS THS Student Handbook 2022-2023?
What page is that?
15 of 24. Bullet number 3.
Open to interpretation.
Not opposed to that.
My concern is, I'm very uncomfortable with saying kids can't wear hoods, but they can wear a baseball cap.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, I'm just not looking at the visual sight line. I'm looking at the security cameras. If we need to access something, I find it very hard to believe that we can say, looking at a security camera, we can see a student's face
You can't.
with a baseball cap when they're trying to conceal themselves. So to me, I think the hoods, I don't care if a kid wears a hoodie, just don't have your hood up and don't wear baseball caps. And I also don't want to give the appearance that we're giving preferential treatment to athletes either.
Right.
So I think we have to consider that on how we treat all students with hoods, baseball caps.
So to Glenn's point, the third bullet, so hoods, baseball caps, or other head coverings that conceal your identity, students are not allowed.
Don't say, I mean, if you're gonna say no baseball caps, you have to just say no hats. Period.
So hoods, hats. Or other head.
Well, what about
coverings
winter
that
hats? You
conceal-
can see their face if they're wearing a winter hat. With the cap,
But they can still pull it down.
We're gonna take them off.
then they can't see.
This.
You're not gonna pull it over their face so they can't see.
I don't think our buildings are extremely cold. So there should be no reason to wear that.
Leanne has something.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, going back to a point that Robin had shared, we had an extensive conversation with our SRO team for last year and a few of the other police officers, and they were sharing about how the hats actually help to identify, they help with investigations. And with our new security camera system, there's an actual feature on there that you could put in, like a red baseball cap, and it will seamlessly track that person through the building. So it hasn't impeded. We do a lot of security surveillance on our cameras, and the hats, the covering, things like that, they don't impede, where the hoods do cause a disruption and they make it much harder to identify. And that's some teaching and learning that we've done with many of our students that just say, I'm more comfortable that way. And it becomes that safety conversation where it really isn't that safety conversation in terms of, a hat that's on or a hat. So just to bring that back up.
Yeah, actually, the second what Leanne was saying, but it actually happened a couple times during investigation this year. Would not have found the kid if we didn't know actually the hat is what identified.
Was it a cap?
Yep, baseball cap. And it helped tremendously. Just to answer the question of old school, I went to school here a long time ago. With other people's kids, we all wore hats all day long. They had teams on them, Torrington, so we diving, ride, baseball caps.
I'm much older than you, Andrew.
Yeah. So I
We
know back in
couldn't.
95, 92, we were wearing, baseball caps for pride.
Jeff was next.
I'm good, I got some answers.
Oh, okay. Gary
So in
again.
response to that, it leads us back to where we start, which is the hats in particular, talk to the police chief, he'll argue the opposite, but I'm not gonna get into that whole issue, especially on cameras. If there's a shooter, you can't typically see the face. You can't identify with the hat or a hoodie, but my point is, we're gonna punch so many holes in this thing because there's so many different opinions. Or I'm gonna vote for uniforms, because we'll get back to the same old problem. We are where we are. We are where we are because it's an impossible policy for teachers to enforce, administrators to enforce, SROs to enforce. You can't enforce it when everybody sees it differently. You can't. I may look at it and the assistant superintendent may look at a girl who has an exposed belly, and there are, I've been to the school and there are lots of them. But how do you address it? If Andrew's afraid to say something, or any other man in this room, maybe the principal is afraid to address that student because they may claim what they do claim, and I'm not gonna repeat some of the things I've said that I've been told, we'll never be able to address this. It won't, it's a policy that we won't be able to
We
address.
need to do
I'm just saying.
what they can live with now. That won't tie their hands. Dress codes, starting a dress code, uniforms now is,
No, I'm not saying.
okay.
I'm
So,
just saying,
yes.
I don't know, I don't know that anything's gonna not tie their hands.
So 4B, does the committee want to bring forward what language? hoods or other head coverings, or do you want baseball caps also?
It's not baseball caps, it would be all hats,
All hats.
because not all caps are baseball caps. I mean, so if you're gonna say that.
Putting you on the spot, Mark.
I don't like, I don't really care about the hats, but I'm happy to go along with hats. But I realize, how many kids wear hats? Like, we don't have any, so we have a couple kids who give us trouble about it for not many.
Yes.
Sorry. So here's the thing, and I think it may be different developmentally in different places and in different stages, but at the middle school level, that has been something that I've been pretty firm about, is there's no hats, there's no hoods in the building. And in the beginning, it was conversations with kids. Now they see, do they sometimes put them back up? Yeah, they do. But when I look at the video footage, kids routinely don't have them. And now it's shifted the culture. Now when they see me, they're like, oops, Mrs. Rinaldi, I'm sorry, let me take this down. So it went from, and it was, for us, it was just kind of a cultural shift. And I think our teachers as well, Mark, you can say, talked about some of the things with the hoods. So for us, not that I think it has to be anywhere else, but for us, it would be going backwards in that sense, because now our kids are doing it, they're expecting it, they're not wearing hoods, they're not wearing hats. And it was, for us, it was kind of that simple step toward compliance and how we talk to them. It wasn't yelling at them till you get down, hey, you know what, kiddo, good morning, do me a favor, can you take that off? And it actually became a way to interact with kids, and it works for us. So I really don't want to go backwards. And if we're going to say no hoods, no hoods, but you could do hats, or you can do, I don't want to get into those gray areas. It's either you say we're doing them and we can do them, or we don't do them. I don't want to sit there and mince words with kids. Well, I can't tell you with the hood, but with the hat I can. It's either we allow it or we don't, but I don't necessarily think it has to be the same for all of our buildings.
So there's no hoods, no hats, no head covering, unless it's
Nothing, unless they're religious, like, or,
right.
That's the only thing that we allow, and kids, for the most part, comply with it. And we have we have a few kids that we're dealing with much bigger issues in some of our programs, where we've kind of said, no, we're not going to give them a pass to wear a hood, but you know what, they're kind of hands off for right now until we can work through some other things. But Mark, that's probably 5-6 kids in our building.
Yeah, that's kind of, I was kind of curious how many kids wear them here. Like, is it really?
Yeah.
What's the?
Yeah, it's pretty prevalent. When I was at the middle school last year, no students wear hats inside the middle school. That was our policy, and that was what we stuck with. Hoods were a constant battle. Kids put them up, you yell at them, they take it down, then 2 minutes later, they put it back up. But here, I mean, I wouldn't guess at the percent, but I mean, kids apparently have been wearing baseball caps in the building since 1992. And I think Andrew Marchand turned out okay.
So what if the board policy was the non-negotiables? And then if additional buildings wanted to make additional restrictions, they could. Not additional permission, additional restriction. Like if we said for the board policy is no hoods. The middle school, you're like, also we don't want hats. That would be, like, is that a compromise type thing?
Well, like the
I
third
understand what
bullet.
you're saying, but I understand, like.
So the third bullet would satisfy that.
Their existing language is what that is.
Right. No,
No.
because what Shelley's saying is that they're actually more strict than us.
Well, they can be.
How to interpret head coverings. We interpret head coverings as everything.
Anything on your head.
Right.
So
I think that gets very complicated, because if you're referencing a policy, you want that policy to have those discussions with parents. So I think it's going to be very difficult for a school to say, well, we do this, but the policy says this. I think that makes it very difficult to. For them to help.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
So I was just wondering if, because we had a dress code policy before A, B, C, and D, and I wonder if some of that is valid, and then the sites are doing what you were saying, Jess, where they're delineating certain things. They want to have more restrictions in the student handbook, but you could put non-negotiables as an E to the existing policy, say absolutely not at any school site.
My only concern with that, Sue, is we have 4 elementary schools.
Right,
What
the
happens-
elementaries would have to all be the same. They all work on the same handbook. They've never done a separate, because we
Well,
live.
some things were a little different at times, and I know, but yeah, I mean, that's my only concern is
Yeah.
that some will be different than others, because there's 4 of them.
But maybe that can be clarified also that they have to.
Jeff was next.
I would imagine the attorneys would be upset if you didn't include some verbiage to talk about a school-based policy, because they're gonna shoot right through it. If you just say, this is our non-negotiables, and then you let the school buildings decide to do something different. So if the middle school wants to not allow hats, but the high school does, anybody who challenges that feels strongly enough about it to take you further, they're going to win if the board policy doesn't at least reference any additional restrictive policy as set by the buildings. And I don't think you can just leave it at this and say the buildings can do what they want if it's more restrictive. Would be my opinion.
Well, to his point. And contrary to what you're saying, it does say that in bullet D. Okay, dress code as prescribed in the student handbook. In the essence of time, we've taken about 20 minutes to cover A and B. So from what I hear from Fiona and Sue, that we're almost leaning towards, let's throw out shipping and go back to what we had before. Stick with this. Is that what you guys are implying?
Not me.
No?
Uh-uh.
I was making that suggestion just to see if that worked. And then adding these new pieces.
I'd be okay with this.
Okay,
I'm not worried about that. But the reason we have the problem we have now is because of the policy we have. I mean, again, it's not about the teachers and administrators. We don't have a policy that works. And we are where we are because it's not enforceable.
Okay, so let's decide what can be enforced.
Yeah, I don't-
So in B, no hoods. Baseball caps.
If somebody over, this is bad, that's over there.
I think your point to enforcement is absolutely crucial in both the existing policy and any policy going forward.
Yeah.
And it sounds as though, yeah, I'm sure there are people who you see in the hallways who are dressed completely inappropriately. But if those are not addressed, I'm sorry, that's your job. And maybe no, it shouldn't be a man addressing a 15-year-old girl or young woman about how she's dressed, but that's the job. That's part of the job. Enforce the rules. It works with cell phones and discipline and clothing. No matter what you write, if you don't enforce it, it's not gonna work.
So what about, so on page 14, the third bullet, hoods or overhead coverings that conceal the identity of individual students are not allowed, period. Head coverings for religious or other legally protected purposes are permitted inside and outside. What if we did that? That does leave a bit of interpretation. If you, as a principal, feel that a baseball cap conceals the identity of students, then maybe you don't allow them. Can't choose. I mean, that would, so then that's, there's a little bit of open interpretation.
Couldn't you insert the word may? Because, like, it's not concealed in my face, but it's the backwards.
Right.
You know, like, you don't wanna, like, don't have stuff like that, that you're gonna get the administrators in this got me game. You know, like, it's not concealed in my face right now, so I can keep it this way. That, if you put may there,
you putting may?
Codes or other head coverings that may conceal the identity.
You're saying save that, conceal,
Well, I
get rid
think-
of may.
Yes, because I think the kids, especially at the middle school level, want to push every button to see what the rules are and say, you know, yes, but if you flip the, like, even hoods, most of the kids are just wearing them to cover their ears, they're not wearing them like they did 10 years ago where they had big giant hoods, they're wearing them like Justin Bieber style to just cover the back of their head. Like they're not what you felt 15 years ago where the hood was 5.
So then prohibits the following from wear during the academic school day would be hoods or other head coverings that may conceal the identity of the individual student. And what about the hairstyles and such? Issue?
I mean, I feel like they put it in there to make sure that people know that those hairstyles are legally permitted. But I don't know that you have to include that verbiage if you're not trying if you're saying all hairstyles are permitted. You're only listing the things that aren't permitted.
Right.
So I don't know that you have to list all the things that are permitted. Necessarily.
I was just gonna suggest using that one sentence from Shipman. You know, I agree, you probably don't have to say that nothing in this policy shall be construed because the statute covers all that stuff. But I was gonna say, instead of using that, but head coverings for religious and other legally protected purposes are permitted inside and outside, to use that one sentence that Shipman says, that says, you know, and rewording it so it makes sense with the language, but, you know, head coverings that are part of a student's religious practice or belief, cultural tradition, or as required or permitted in conjunction with the school district health and safety protocols shall be permitted under this policy or something like that. Use that language, it just sounds more legally aligned with the statute, but maybe not the rest of the part because it's a little wordy and it's covered in the statute.
And I would push back a little bit on cultural tradition. That wasn't part of the original shipment one. That was an addition, and I think that that's really vague. So I would probably suggest not using that phrase. On page 12, it's been inserted.
Oh, the italicized.
Yeah, it's italicized because it wasn't part of the original shipment.
Oh, got it.
Got it.
Oh, so, I'm sorry.
Our administration.
Oh, I see that.
So just a question, in comparing 10 and 12, 10 and 11 to 12 and 14, it's not just the cross outs, there's other things added in here?
It's in italics. So.
Only in
That's the
italics,
only
or is
thing.
there other
Only
edits that?
italics. And that looks like the only one.
Yeah, that's the only one.
At the end, the last page.
Cultural tradition.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and
M and the last paragraph.
upper thighs. and
Okay.
italics.
So for B, prohibits the following from wear during the academic school day. Hoods or other head coverings that may conceal the identity of an individual student. And then approved coverings worn as part of a student's religious practice or belief, or is required or permitted in conjunction with the school district health and safety protocols shall be
Permitted.
shall be permitted,
It doesn't, yeah, you don't need that.
shall be permitted, period.
So I don't think it should say approved coverings, except those, because that's the reason why it's worded the way it is right now.
So
I think it should
covering-
say
Right.
head coverings worn as a part of a student's religious practice or belief, or as required or permitted in conjunction with the school district health and safety protocols shall be permitted under this policy.
Right. Do you need under this policy? Or just shall be permitted?
No.
I don't get a vote, but
Yeah.
I think you're making it so discretionary that it's going to be impossible to do it. Like, one person is gonna think that's acceptable, what that child has on, I can see their face. This person is gonna say, I don't think it's acceptable, and I think we run into the same problem of different rules in different rooms and different, I just think it's very difficult. I mean, I feel very strongly that we have a expectation of our students, and it should be K through 12, I think as soon as we allow that discretionary thing on the head, it opens us up to be discriminatory. I feel like. Like you either allow them or you don't,
So what's discretionary then?
whether it is covering their face or not.
Okay, so you want to, your suggestion would be what? Hoods or baseball caps?
She's saying no, no hats.
I don't think we should only have to, I don't know why anyone would wear a hat to school.
Okay, so hats. Prohibits the following from wear during the academic school day. Hats,
Hoods. Hats and hoods.
hoods and hats, and then head coverings worn as part of a student's religious.
Well, those they can wear.
Yeah. Shall be permitted.
Whatever changes we make, so we can't take the lawyer's policy and a la carte it.
No, right,
So if we're
right. We have
making
to bring it
changes,
back.
then we'll have to send it back to Shipman to
Right,
review it.
right. So
So maybe we
hoods and hats of any kind.
It's up to what everyone thinks. I mean,
Uniforms.
Scary.
We can go home. I'm kidding.
I mean, do you think it's enforceable with that language is?
Would it be, Ryan?
I'm not sure what the language is at this point. It's changed so many times. I don't-
It is subjective.
Yeah.
It does be subjective.
But if you
Yeah.
say hoods or hats,
Mhm.
okay, so prohibited from wearing any hoods or hats. But then head coverings for religious are permitted,
What about head coverings that are not for religious purposes?
and that's not permitted.
Well,
Let's go back.
why wouldn't we just go back to B?
Yeah.
Let's just go back to B.
We
I mean,
have to be
obviously,
hoods
there's
or
some
hats
things-
though,
Because some of
No,
those.
no,
we
no.
have to add hats.
Right, but what if we just go back to this
so a head
B,
covering is,
head coverings of any kind? But then we can do whatever here.
Take
Shall
out
not be worn,
headbands.
carried,
Yeah.
right, take out headbands. I
Right.
mean, band-
The stuff that just doesn't
Yeah.
make
The
sense.
stuff that
It's
doesn't
just-
make sense. I
right,
mean,
so it
Just take it
can't
out.
be of any
Right, a
kind.
headband's not a head covering.
Right.
Headband's not a
Nor is a
headband.
sweatband.
Neither is an athletic
Oh, we have two
sweatband,
kids that-
right?
I know.
I know.
So I would just-
Like a headband.
What's the
Yeah, I
definition of a hat?
Only your hair should be out unless you have a religious covering. as far as I'm
No,
concerned.
you get, there's a lot of different kinds of hats.
So that's fine.
There's beanies.
It was a mask.
Scarf.
About like a wig, that's a head covering.
You know, what is-
Masks, what about, it says masks in here too.
I know, I don't get that either, but,
I think it probably needs a dress up costume.
oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
I just, why don't we just do head coverings of any kind?
Ellen.
Yeah, there was some,
What are the?
just before, there was someone over here
Over there,
that,
one over here.
you're all set?
Yeah, I have a question, and I'm like completely in the meta world here, but like what do you mean by hats exactly? Because like there are are like, do you just mean baseball caps, or you mean like beanies and like do-rags, like anything that might cover your head? Because I remember last year, I wore a beanie most of last year because I had damaged hair, and that's really embarrassing to show to the entire school of a whole bunch of students that, look, guys, my hair is damaged, and you all get to see it. Like, that's embarrassing. Is there like, are you gonna specify like what kind of hats? Do you just mean baseball caps, or do you mean like other hats as well? Because I'm very confused here, and I'd like to know as a student at DHS.
I think that's what we're trying to decide.
I'll address
That's
that.
what we're working
Can I
on.
answer that one?
Sure.
Try.
Well, wait,
She
Diane had her hand up, so.
Who did?
I think it's Andrew. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Andrew.
Kind of the question you're asking about, go to headbands, that is one of the reasons we fell into this area. Because it would go from a do-rag, which would be, it was tight and wrapped, you can identify somebody that was hanging down over their face, you could not. If it was a headband or a scarf, let's say it's not allowed, but a scarf was wrapped up tight and over the head and tied, then is that allowed? The headband is a scarf, that was allowed, not allowed. And then you have all of other types of, so with just all about hoods, the main issue for us would be cut and dry. That's something to follow through on. If you want accountability, enforceability would be hoods. For me.
Facial recognition is the most important thing, I think, but, I mean, not for anything, I'm a foster mom here in Torrington, and I have all kinds of girls that come to my home with all different issues, problems. So say her hair wasn't right that day, if they're African American, they're embarrassed to come to school with nothing on. They wanna come with something on their head, whether it's a tight scarf, whether, it's a thick headband. But, if you're gonna strict all that, I think you're, not doing justice for culturally challenged, different types of people with different haircuts.
Glenn and then
I was gonna say, for her case, damaged hair, I mean, that's something that can be taken up on a case by case basis. It's more of a medical thing that can be approved by administration. Got to keep this simple, blanket, no hats, no head coverings. We're beating a dead horse here.
I'm confused on why headbands are considered in the policy, because you all have been arguing that hats restrict the view of the face, would headbands not do the opposite?
we're not
that's what I-
restricting, we're not banning headbands. It's
That's what
mostly,
we just said. That's
right,
what we
it's
just
usually
said.
hats and
Okay, yeah, no,
hoods
I
and-
understand that.
Yeah, that's
What we
okay.
just said, no.
Just like to say, there was at one point a comment about differentiating between banning things that are covering the face, things that could cover the face. Just like to say, a shirt could be pulled up to cover your face. Like, we're gonna ban anything that could potentially cover your face if it's on your head. Someone can just pull up their shirt, we can ban the shirt. Or you say banning things that are covering their face.
But they're not gonna walk through the hallway with their shirt up the whole time. I mean, it might be temporary, but it's not.
Are they gonna walk along with the
Right.
hat over their face the whole time?
Uniforms with ties.
Okay. We're not doing uniforms.
I know.
That would be the mask.
But thank you
We
for
don't know.
winding it up.
We don't know, we're getting close with the aggravation.
Maybe in the future, but not today. So if we want hats, hoods, or other head coverings that may conceal that individual student, period, then head coverings worn as part of a religious practice or belief are required or permitted in conjunction with school district health and safety protocols shall be permitted. Is that good? Committee?
Yeah, I think we just went back to the base review.
That's right, that's
Right.
right.
You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
We can discuss this again.
We're gonna have to.
Yes.
yeah.
So why don't we just go with
Okay.
that and think
So
more about it?
the third bullet.
Yeah.
The third bullet.
Say it again. Yeah, just say the beginning of it again. I got the
Yeah.
second part, but.
Hats, hoods, or other head coverings that may conceal the identity of individual students, period. And then head coverings worn as part of the student's religious practice or belief, or as required or permitted in conjunction with school district health and safety protocols shall be permitted.
I'm confused. I thought we were just saying no, or,
It is no hats.
no, but
It's-
saying it restricts their face.
It prohibits the following from wear during the academic day. Hoods and hats, period.
I don't know, that's
No,
what I
we
thought
not
we were.
saying- I think, well, originally what was proposed or spoken about was if it didn't restrict the visibility to the face, that it was acceptable. And then you raised the very accurate concern that that's subjective. And then we talked through it again and here we are. So
But at the middle school, there are no hats and no hoods.
that is our current, yes.
At the high school,
Yep, no.
there's no hoods, but there's hats.
Yep.
Or other head coverings. That don't conceal the identity of the individual.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
He's good.
So
But
is
I'm
that
just
what we're
saying,
doing?
if we're gonna make it subjective, then I think you don't even do it. Because then you're just setting it up to not work. Because it's impossible. It's not just the administrators, it's every person in every room that would have to do it.
Right.
Let's make a decision.
So you want to just do hoods right now, or hoods and hats, and then whenever this is approved, if it's the consensus of the full board, and it goes to Shipman and it's approved, then the high school would have to enforce no hats.
Well,
If
Yeah,
that's what we
right,
want,
yeah.
could I recommend that we write that bullet in two different ways? After this meeting, send what we came up with to Shipman, so that what comes to the full board, we know is vetted and we have the feedback at that point. I think we're getting hung up on this one point, and maybe, like, I don't know, if maybe legally, the subjectivity is a problem. Maybe Shipman will say, no, you can't make it be subjective like that. And then that would be our answer.
I don't know. I mean, I think I just need to go back to that other example. If a head for health reasons, wouldn't that be under school district health and safety protocols?
Not necessarily, but you could add the language that I saw.
Because that's what I'm wondering, because then that gives.
Under E where it says sunglasses.
Yeah.
There is something that says sunglasses unless required pursuant to a documented medical issue.
Okay.
You
So
could
in a
add
case
something
where a
that says
child
a
or
documented
a-
medical issue.
Could
that-
add-
Can't require a doctor's note for something like that.
Right.
Right,
I mean,
but I'm just saying that would be
for
the.
example,
that would
No,
be the-
I
I'm
mean,
just
I-
making a
That's not
suggestion.
medical.
I
No.
understand.
But we had, for example, in my years, we had a child with alopecia, and that child was able to wear a scarf around, and that would fall, I just want to make sure that that is in here, because that is a real concern, that, you know, and I think that's an important piece for us to make sure we have in there. I sort of assumed that that would be under that, but you're right, probably it would be better under E.
The other thing we can do is just say hoods or hats with brims. Because anything with a brim can theoretically obscure your face. No brim, it's not gonna obscure your face.
True.
I mean, that's another thing.
I'm gonna ask one last question. To the administrators, would you find this easier to implement if they created, if the policy committee ultimately decides to make a policy that will say has a lot of restrictions or is far more cut and dry for people to enforce, would you find that easier to implement on April 1st or on September 1st?
September.
So I would just suggest that the policy be considered, by the time it goes to Shipman, it comes back to policy, then goes back to the board. I'm guessing this is still a late March, early April meeting by the time it actually finished.
Doesn't need to be though.
That's only a couple months.
Because a lot of the, I mean, once the board approves it, it's effective.
For the full board person.
Yeah.
So I guess I would suggest that if you're gonna build a policy that has, yes, cut and dry, it might be easier to do it so that you make the policy effective. Give it something that makes it easier for these administrators and teachers to enforce. I get it, it's very subjective, which makes it very difficult. It almost doesn't change the existing policy. Shipman equivalent probably would look at it and go, well, why are you changing it? Because it isn't all that much different than what you already have.
Very different.
Can I just ask for clarification? Yeah. So in our previous conversations around this at previous policy meetings, it was my impression that the committee and the board was most concerned about shirts revealing the abdomen, that sort of thing. Is it possible to focus on those elements of it right now for the purposes of the remainder of the year? To rein that in while
With spring and summer coming. To address that.
I mean, if you know, if you're having struggles with the development of the whole thing and there's some questions out there. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think so.
Should we look
Okay,
at
so,
what we can
all right,
do
so
now?
let's move to C, we'll come back to B. So C,
See, we're.
Well, that's-
we're taking out, okay, D.
I like D.
It's fine.
Sorry for discussion.
E.
F. Keep it out. G.
I would like to see G kept in. I see the note that says it's not a style choice at this time. I'm not sure that it isn't for anybody, and it seems like that's a fairly easy thing to put in there.
But that's subjective too, I mean.
Spiked or studded bracelets is not subjective.
Well,
Any article of it or attire with spikes or studs attached. Any other clothing item that may present a safety hazard to the student.
well, they have spiked bracelets and necklaces that aren't like 12 inches. I mean,
That's not subjective.
but that's a style.
Well, here it says it's not a style choice.
This is 10 hands.
But what I'm saying is, I think it is. And even if it isn't widespread, why would we want to say we're not going to require this? Because most kids don't do it. Then if most kids don't do it, then it's not gonna impact them. Kids. Leave it in there. I mean, it's just
No uniform, so don't be.
no, and I don't like,
That's for,
Yeah, we don't vote.
no, I was gonna talk about the bracelet. We don't keep talking.
no, go ahead.
It is a style choice at this time, for sure. The individuals, and I know some schools, I think most schools have on them. You know, I'm gonna name some schools, but a spike bracelet used properly, by any girl or boy in a fight, or somebody's skin off another, you know, take your eyes out. Not easier than a fist or you know, pulling somebody's hair out. You know, it could be used as a weapon, I don't get it, but I mean, I worked at a school in the Bronx and Ford Road years ago, and they weren't allowed that, and that was the 80s, but yeah, if anybody's gonna use them as the kids, you know, it was a little high, but you know, I see no reason to have them in school. I don't have a vote though.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Right.
Well, I understand the point brought up of if it's like not used, like why should we like not keep it in the code? That's fine, I understand that. But the argument of like, oh, used correctly, it can be used as a weapon. I've seen some damage done with like a pencil. You know, like that could go again. That's very subjective. You know, like and of course, like well, like oh, okay. You know, like when used correctly, that can do some damage, you know, but that goes for anything. That goes for stuff we have in our bags all the time, you know, it's one of the computer, you know, like car keys, yeah, stuff like that. So.
Do you want to read it in? I do.
The biggest thing, you know, as an administrator here at the high school that just keeps going back on my mind is like reducing barriers for students to come to school. We know that our chronic absenteeism is extremely high. And so, you know, especially, you know, the examples that we're saying like, well, if you have a medical reason, then that takes that individual to have to come in, host a meeting, share everything that's going on in their life, stand out with everybody else because there are no other head coverings. And then it's drawn attention of, why do you get to wear that? Why are you getting disciplined? See, if I wore this, it just pits our students against students and staff against staff. And then all day long, that student needs to have like a laminated task from like, I am allowed to wear this, you know, and then they have run into more interactions with staff, other individuals where they may be highlighted, brought out further. So that's one fear that I have because I don't want students saying, I'm not coming to school because there's something medically going on with me or a hair situation, or I'm feeling uncomfortable or unsafe that someone's going to say something and it's going to cause me anxiety. These ripple effects do happen and they do come. And my fear is that with more and more pinpointing specifically everything, it causes us to just kind of be these wardens of discipline all day long. And it's increasing these chronic progressive discipline reactions that end up causing our kids to be out of school suspended for infractions that by themselves seem very low level. And in the end, we're coming up to students and families and breaking down our relationships with our kids and their families and saying, now you may go up for an expulsion hearing with the Board of Education, and we're gonna run the risk that there are going to be many, many students. And it doesn't become a dress code issue, it turns into a defiance issue, it turns into a headbutting issue, it turns into a family issue, and families opposing, you know, administrators, staff, feeling targeted. I just wanna make sure that as we're going through this, it is taking the time to look at it, and that there are further implications of putting together just a dress code policy. And I don't want to run that risk of breaking down barriers, having, you know, with our families, having more chronic absenteeism, having our expulsion rates go up high. Because we will follow whatever policy, we will support the Board of Education, you know, but I just want to make sure we're being thorough and thinking it through. So, thank you.
Are there issues of students in the high school wearing studded bracelets, necklaces, and
Not
such?
issues, it might be a fashion statement.
Yes. And I think that goes down to that
So
last
you've
statement
seen
of this one, it talks about hostile, intimidating, and interferes with the health or the safety of any student, then that would be immediately addressed once seen or brought forward. Those are the four most important things.
Where does it say hostile?
So if you look down on the one that's in the TMS and the THS handbooks currently.
Oh, the handbook. Well, that,
Yeah,
those
no,
are,
what I'm
those are
saying, if you look at
procedures.
those
That's-
overall,
Those
you
are
know,
procedures. Those
But
are
if we're
for,
thinking on those four,
those are procedures. We're doing the policy itself, and then your procedures within your building are your procedures built around the policy. There's a hand up over here.
I agree, and while this, more goes with the theme of kind of like singling someone out, you know, whether purposely or not, you know, I'm someone with a 504, and a lot of times in the hallways, I have noise canceling headphones. And just the process of having to get a 504 and having to go through with it and all that stuff, you know, well, that's not a big problem. It's also not a problem we're addressing today, so that's fine. You know, but even after that, after being like, okay, I know I can wear these, I have the right, blah, blah, blah. Like teachers and staff will still come up to me and say, hey, you can't wear, which is fine. It's not their business to know in the first place. Like, I don't need everyone to have a full background check on me, you know. But it's just this kind of whole, it shouldn't have to be a whole ordeal, you know, in order to the end point to be the same. Of, hey, what can you take this off?
My concern is and remains, especially at a high school level, we're preparing these kids for the real world, whatever that real world looks like for them, whether it be college, career. They're not going to get accommodations in the real world. And there are some things that kids have to follow, and there's some rules that have to be followed. And I think we can make an excuse for everything, but it's out of control when you walk through it. I've been through here so many times, and I know people will say it's not, but it's gotten to the point where it's got to be reined back in. And when you go to work, maybe some companies allow you to dress this way. Most companies don't. And I don't want to set up false expectations for these kids either of what's next, because having a trusted adult is great. But in the real world, you're gonna have to follow rules. So if we're not gonna have them, then just don't have them. But I think there's a lot of discussion. And if we're, you're looking at every single person and why they might wanna do this or why they might wanna do that. But as an organization, you have to have rules. So that's my 2 cents.
We're gonna move on through the policy. So H, keep in? Yes. I, keep in? Yes. J, keep in? Yes. K, keep in? L.
Is this the part, is K the one that we should be expanding on? Since that's where some of the issues are coming in, or does that cover the body parts that are an issue? That covers everything?
So we're on to L.
Okay. I have a question, and I think one of our
On what?
commenters brought this up earlier.
On
about-
L?
No, on one of the ones that we just said by. about K, shirts and or blouses that reveal the abdomen, chest, or undergarments. I think maybe pants that reveal the undergarments should also be included.
That's on the
That's in the next one.
Pants, oh, sorry about that. Pants, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because someone had raised a concern that that was not included, and that doesn't.
Al?
Yeah, I would keep the things that are crossed out, I would keep them.
Tank tops
There's
and
a difference
sleeveless
between
Yeah,
sleeveless
wait,
shirts and tank tops. Like, a sleeveless shirt, I think you can wear them appropriately. They're free form, free falling. Like, I have a tank top on under this. I would never walk out of my house with that on. And that's me, but I think that's the difference. The fitted tank top versus a sleeveless shirt. I think personally there's a difference, but
I think they probably put it in there because you can wear a sleeveless shirt that's cut really wide. Or you can be like a guy from the gym and have a sleeveless shirt and it's cut all down the side. I mean, so it's probably included to just cover all of those bases. That's my thinking, and that would be my thinking for leaving it in, but that's not a thing.
I mean, no.
Wait a minute. I'm doing the committee first.
I agree with Sue about the sleeveless shirt piece, like that's.
Do you want to leave in tank tops?
well, we need, I'm just saying that, I don't think we should leave it. I'm just putting it out there that there could be discussion around that there is a distinct difference between a tank top and a sleeveless shirt.
Okay, so the committee. Do you want Al to read see-through clothing? Period.
I would prefer to leave it alone.
I mean, I see what it's thinking, and I don't know. I don't have an opinion on this, which is unusual.
I mean, I would think that 90% of the kids wear a sleeveless shirt.
Sleeveless shirt.
I don't know, that just seems like it's gonna be close to.
But I get.
I get both sides of it. I absolutely do.
For Al,
Let Andrew go first.
for Al, Gary.
Let Andrew go first.
I just had a question about school uniforms during the day. It's a sleeveless shirt.
We're not discussing school uniforms.
Well, I know, but if they wore it like.
No, sports.
No,
Sports
Athletic
uniform.
uniforms.
Sports uniform, oh, okay.
Yeah.
If they wore it during the day. Because they're sleeveless.
If they wear a shirt under.
T-shirt.
They have to wear a shirt.
Or that it would only be, I mean, if, like,
Suits and ties like these two.
right. I mean, I think if there was an instance where the sports uniform was supposed to be worn during the day, like, to me, that would be an exception. Because we know that those are appropriate, that's why they.
And they're purchased by the board.
Well, no, what's the concern with the tank tops and sleeveless shirts? Is it that it's distracting or like why are you just trying to get rid of them?
Well, revealing, I guess. That's covered in shirts and or blouses that reveal the abdomen, chest, or undergarments. That would cover.
That would cover it. Yeah,
I don't
that's
think you need owls, but covered in text.
Except for see-through clothing.
So see-through clothing would reveal an undergarment, abdomen, or chest, so then it would not be.
The difference is you can't define it. Nobody knows what a tank top is. And we have the same problem with where the tank top sits. It's enforcement of the tank top. Some, and talk about, I get the sexualizing. There's the argument that people wearing them is sexualizing. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but if you want to do all the research, it's out there. And there are thousands of studies. And there's those who say it isn't. But it falls upon the administration to decide what's a legitimate tank top and what's not. And we're in the same situation we're in over and over again. Again, kids want to express themselves, we understand. But when SRO officers and people in the school system are afraid to enforce a policy because there's too much ambiguity in the policy and it's not well defined, it's something as a board we have to consider for the entire school system. Now, there are 4,000 kids in the school system. I think there are 800 or 900 at the high school. So we have to consider the 900 students in the school system and how it impacts them, how it impacts the way they see themselves. And the argument is they can be shamed. But there's an argument on the other side that says, you know, they feel inferior or insecure when they see other people work them. There's so many studies and arguments, but the board has to make a decision that takes into consideration the entire class and as well protects the teachers and protects the administration and allows them to make decisions that are not subjective. Because you are where you are, and we are here tonight because it's been so subjective and because there have been so many, again, nobody in this room, I know some kids in this room probably never ran into that problem, but there are so many different episodes that go on in the school. And I don't know how many I've dealt with every day, but I suspect it's a lot that have to do with school dress, or it's completely ignored. We're trying to stop the ignoring of a policy because it's created lots of angst and lots of problems, but I can't deny the thing now, but anyway, sleeveless is wide open to how you view it.
So if we can combine K, L, and M all as one. Shirts and or blouses, see-through clothing, tank tops, sleeveless shirts, shorts, mini skirts, pants that reveal the abdomen, chest, or undergarments. How does that sound?
Somebody raised the question of what is the upper thigh, right?
I took upper thigh
You took it out.
But what was the upper thigh was.
It's in the original.
It's in the original.
Yeah, it is. It's italicized, but it's in the original. I mean, I
Because it was italicized, we thought.
don't really feel like upper thigh really is all that big. You got your knee, you got the top of your thigh, you got the middle of your thigh. So things above the middle would be upper thigh. I mean, if you don't have that in there, then
What about a cheerleader that wears their uniform on Friday?
that would be an exception.
Exception.
Because it's school uniform.
School uniform.
There's nothing in the policy that says.
Then
except
then we
school
may have to
uniform.
write that if you think that would be confusing to people. I mean, to me, if you have a school spirit day and kids who are on teams are being told wear your uniform.
I know, basketball players are
Yeah, I mean, to me, that would be, that's, they'd be wearing it more specifically.
Okay, so shirts and or blouses, see-through clothing, tank tops, sleeveless shirts, shorts, mini skirts, or pants that reveal abdomen, chest, or undergarments, or the upper thigh. Well, we have to wait for
Chest, undergarments.
Right.
They split it up.
Or upper thigh.
Talk about the top half of them.
Okay, so with the see-through clothing should be up with shirts and blouses, right?
I mean, I guess.
How that makes sense. Yep.
See-through pants are also bad, right? I mean, I think,
But if it's
so maybe
see-through-
listing it
but if it-
separately,
but if it's
just anything that's see-through, you shouldn't be wearing.
If it's covered in
It's what, Mark? What was that rule?
It's covered in K, it's covered in L. So shirts and or blouses.
I don't, think there's some kid that's like, oh, look at this loophole.
So shirts and or blouses, see-through clothing, tank tops, or sleeveless shirts that reveal the abdomen, chest, or undergarments would be K. And M would be shorts, mini skirts, or pants that reveal the upper thigh or undergarments.
Combine them and say any item of clothing that reveals, so then it's not mini skirt, it's a dress, like that's where it could get more gender, feel more gender specific. It's really seeing those areas, that's the main focus. It's not really about what the item.
So then any item of clothing that reveals the abdomen, chest, or undergarments.
Any article of how shorts, pants, or any item of clothing, so that it's clear that it's bottoms.
Yeah, I think there must have been a reason why the attorneys wanted the upper and the lower part of the body separated.
No reason to combine them, if you're gonna say the same,
Yeah.
just follow
Right,
them,
I said the same.
just follow it.
So any article of clothing,
Yeah, I think taking mini skirts out is fine, because it really isn't relevant what type of clothing it is.
Right. Any
Or the
article.
gender of the person wearing the clothing.
so any
What's
item,
relevant is.
okay, so any item of clothing that reveals the abdomen, chest, or undergarments, and any item of clothing that reveal the upper thigh or undergarments.
That girl's really trying.
I think does that sound good for the committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so,
The young lady over here too.
yep, I think you had your hand up first. Someone over here did, no?
She's our guidance.
She's fine. You're okay? Okay.
Something that I probably like, upper thigh, undergarments, that's fine. Something that I felt was a gray area was when in reference to the chest area, because I feel a lot of time that can obviously very like differentiate, from, and of course it can be across all genders, but a lot of times people will claim distraction, from like, especially someone like, I've been dress coded or stuff like this, having, a low like scoop neck or like stuff like that, where it's like, you can see my cleavage, and people will be, okay, you can't wear, a sweater to put over it, like stuff like that. And a girl with the same top with a flat chest can be wearing the same thing. And it's like, well, yeah, that's not distracting because she has like a flat chest. And I found that a lot of times, many articles of clothing can be like, have to do in relativity to the size of the person wearing it. Like a lot of times, like really skinny girls won't be in trouble for wearing leggings. However, like chubbier girls go, no, that's distracting. And so for the that reveal the chest, if we are to implement that, I'd like more specific. I would like it to be more specific if we do implement that, just because it can just be difficult, especially just finding something that fits and that's comfortable, well, not looking like a nurse.
That could also apply for the male person also.
Yes, yeah, and that went with the point brought up of those really, really low, like with the sleeves and sides cut off, like that too, because it's like, you can see your whole like torso, I don't know, like it's like a second period.
We need to extend the meeting, please. 2 minutes to 9.
Motion to extend the meeting for 15 minutes. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm waiting for him to say that. Now, what about this line?
Wait a minute, that was Kathy and Jess?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay.
The line that was crossed out, spandex garments are allowed only if they are covered by shorts or skirts.
That was crossed out.
Correct. But we're considering the things that were crossed out because we aren't the ones that crossed it out.
Okay. But when I read through it, my thought was to keep it crossed out.
So what's everybody else's thought?
What's your thought?
I mean, I have heard complaints about yoga pants.
I don't think we should go down that road. I don't think it, I hate to
That's
point you
right.
out, Lydia, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the outfit that you have on because it's covered. You have on a long shirt, you have on the. That's not, those aren't the types of dress code violations that we're looking at. It's,
That's the problem, I know.
and if it's appropriate, it's appropriate. But I don't think we can ban all spandex garments and all yoga pants. I don't think we should do that. Yeah, if you're, they're covered, it's appropriate. I guess, you could say my jeans fall in that category right now. That's.
I just like to know from the administrators, is that line, can you enforce it? Mrs. Babbitt, I could, in reference to her, yes, she's wearing the appropriate clothing. If you went to the school, you'd see that there's a lot of violations, but if it stays in, can you enforce it? will you pay attention to it?
We
You
pay
have to send
attention
home
to
every
all
kid.
referrals that are
No,
sent
I'm
to us.
saying, you can have the spandex, I'm saying, but it requires a cover. So will you feel comfortable enforcing that?
What kind of covering though? Like what,
This is-
what about, what's wrong, what about this?
What is the?
This isn't covering my, I mean, it's a little bit big, but it's not covering everything. And this is, these might be a little tighter. I can't even believe I'm doing this right now.
Because
Seriously, that's.
I will answer your question, because we're talking about gender, we're talking about shaming, we're talking about how girls feel, and there's one side of the equation where the girls feel like they look great in them. And there's the other side that feel uncomfortable that's being allowed in the school because they don't look like that. And then people can question it, but you can do the research. I'm okay, I'm not against it, but the covering allows it to be more comfortable for everybody. And, you know, I'm getting this from all the studies that have been done. If you're going to allow it, that's something that allows the girls who, I'm not gonna say don't look better in them, but it allows more comfort and there's less shame in many cases.
But then how do you
I don't know.
track I mean,
Again, I have a problem with the whole thing because it's so difficult. But I'm not.
well, it is, but I think at that point, that's just almost every
You make an
person's outfit,
Mark, you had a comment?
that or sweatpants.
I don't, like, as much as I don't want to be the clothing police, I don't know that you couldn't have something that, almost reverse it where yoga style pants should be covered to the upper thigh or something by shirt, skirt, but I don't know that you couldn't put something in that, because I don't know that you couldn't do that. Not that I want to be the yoga police.
If we are focusing on the argument of comfort, like making people comfortable in our school, then maybe we shouldn't focus on the dress code. Maybe it should be more about putting doors on the bathroom stalls. Because when my friend has to stand in front of the door so I can use the bathroom because we don't have doors on our stalls, that does not make me comfortable. So seeing people walking around in leggings doesn't bother me. I'm able to get my work done. I'm a good student. I have straight A's. I'm second in my class right now. I see people wearing leggings and crop tops every day. Focus on the problems that are going to harm people rather than the ones that don't matter.
In the white switcher.
I was just gonna say that I feel as if we're focusing on as to what students are wearing compared to the reaction to what they're wearing. And the reason why we feel like they shouldn't wear these things is because the environment that we're creating and how we react to it. It wouldn't be considered distracting and all this stuff if people weren't sexualizing stuff, like, because the body is the body. And regardless if you are more developed or not, it's still your body. You shouldn't be penalized for having such body compared to other people. So I feel as if we should focus more on the environment that we're creating for our students to feel as if they're targeted just because they're different than someone else, and how people react to what they're wearing. Because like the lady that was but you're preparing people for the real world, and in the real world you cannot control how other people to react to what you're wearing. So I feel as if we shouldn't change what is it that we wear to please others. We should change how they view it. We can't sexualize everything. Your body's your body, everybody. Well, we don't all have the same parts, but we all have.
Did you have something?
She took what I wanted to say.
Stole your thunder.
I would like to add on to what Sophia said. I am a straight A student in AP classes. I am a member of NHS. I am in student council. I'm the president of the Interact Club. What you guys are saying are dress code violations and a distraction to student learning, I have not had a problem with at all, I believe, in my high school career. Like Sophia said, we don't have locks on our bathrooms. Just recently, actually last year, we had an incident within our friend group where somebody was using the bathroom in the boys' locker room, which do not have locks, and people started taking videos of it. That is the stuff that we should be concerned about, not whether someone wears their shorts too high or whether someone's body is too developed to be wearing a certain shirt.
Thank you.
I think people are disagreeing mainly in this, is that everyone has different body types.
So it's hard to like focus on one thing when other people are affected differently by it.
Again, I mean, when one of the students said that, you know, every day they see people in leggings and crop tops. My understanding is that would be a violation of the existing dress code and the proposed one as well. Again, we're back to, you know, if it's a violation, sorry, you gotta violate it.
Yeah.
The other, and I understand that the difficulty of subjectivity, but it was a Supreme Court justice who said in the early 1970s, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. And my guess is that you could probably know violations when you see it. And some of these, I'm sure some of these beautiful young people look gorgeous in those outfits. It doesn't make it appropriate.
Right. Can I just say something? I love what you just said because I think that's the issue. I think we want our kids to dress appropriately for every occasion. And what might be, it might not be appropriate for school and all the time. Every outfit is not appropriate for school. Right.
Okay. Yeah, could I just add something? In the summer, do you guys normally have air conditioned throughout the school, or do these
Depends on
young
the
people
school.
suffer with the heat? Because I'm thinking, if I'm a student here and you don't have good air conditioning and you're making me wear a long sleeve shirt, or I can't wear a, you know, sleeveless, that to me, that alone, just being in that heat, I'm not gonna be able to concentrate. I'm not even gonna wanna be here, you know. And also when they say cover up, so if it's summertime and it's hot outside and you're asking me, because I'm wearing leggings, I gotta wear something long like a sweater or cover up, then you're putting more stuff on me, you know. I'm thinking the comfort of the student should be a little bit, you know, more important.
Go ahead, we only have a few more minutes to get through the rest of the policy, but if you can be quick, that would be great.
I would also like to draw attention to what is currently marketed towards women, especially at our age. When you walk into a store like Target, you don't see big bulky jeans, you see these spandex, you see these short shorts for the summer, and that's not anyone here's fault. That is what companies advertise and target towards teenage girls. And that's what's shoved in the face whenever they walk into a store. So we should not make them have or to be able to replace their entire wardrobe just to fit in with the school policy.
Quickly, please.
I don't think it's targeting dress girls. I mean, boys may not want to dress this way, but there's the other side that boys can dress the same way. It's the standard we have to set for everybody. And I know you're all smart girls, but as a board, we have to consider, you know, how it goes. In the school, high school, for instance, it's never had air conditioning, and you know, in the summertime, it's hot. And that's the way it is. It's been that way for 65 years, and the new school is going to have air conditioning, so that'll help. But you know, it's got to be a policy that satisfies all. And you're right, it's all geared toward you guys, and it's sad, all that advertising.
Okay, so we decided that K should be any item of clothing that reveals the abdomen, chest, or underarms. L is see-through clothing and tank tops. Keep sleeveless out.
Well, that's the same argument with the t-shirt, with men's t-shirt. What if guys come in with sleeveless t-shirts, you know, the wife beaters? You want to see that? Is that appropriate? I mean,
But it's an item of clothing that would
You said,
reveal
oh,
the chest or
that's a sleeveless shirt.
undergarments.
That's a tank top.
But it's still a sleeveless shirt.
It is, but it's also a tank top.
It's a tank
There's a
Again,
difference.
There there is no difference. It depends who you talk to.
There is.
I could talk to Italians. Sorry, but it's true.
So that would be an item of clothing that would
I'm being
reveal the
serious.
abdomen, chest, or
I'm making a
undergarments.
point.
By changing K, you're encompassing. Subjectively, but
So any item of clothing. How would you like it to read?
No, keep it.
Any item of clothing that reveals the abdomen, chest, or undergarments for K. And L,
I think, you know, if we're talking about the guys wearing those shirts, you're talking about them revealing their chests, so.
So see-through clothing, tank tops or sleeveless shirts that reveal,
No, just,
period.
because you have that up here,
Covered in
that
K.
it's covered in
So
K.
keep in tank tops and sleeveless shirts.
I think it's just covered in K.
Yeah, because it's covered in K.
Anything that exposes those are parts of the body is covered in K. So you don't have to, you'd almost be giving an exception if you mentioned it again and out.
Okay, but we want to keep in tank tops and sleeveless shirts, not cross it off.
I
In
think
L.
I think it's covered in K too, that
See,
by
this one
saying
is-
shirts and blouses that cover,
So
that reveal
L,
the abdomen.
L take completely off.
Well, what
Yes.
about see-through clothing?
That would reveal the abdomen.
Oh, reveal everything. Well, it could
Like
be. I don't.
Like those mesh shirts.
So hilarious. That's what I'm thinking is one of those
They
mesh shirts with a bra underneath.
Right, but that reveals.
All right, so take out L. So M would be any article of clothing that reveals the upper thigh or undergarments.
Right.
And we already decided no.
No, what about the spandex? Is it in or is it out?
Oh, what about spandex?
No, she's still on K.
I think we should revisit that when we revise it for the September.
I think, I don't think it's right. I don't know what the bottom looks like. I don't think
But
that.
all
that's-
yoga pants aren't like the spandex. Little tight.
But that span, I mean, she was right when she said the word spandex is material.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense. If you say a certain type of pants, that makes sense. That's something. you put there. So I would throw in yoga pants, but.
Just name the portion of the body that you don't want to be visible. And then it's done.
Yeah, then you don't have to worry.
Then you don't have to worry, but you've already done that up top by saying abdomen, chest, or undergarments. Just if you add the part of the body you don't want to be visible, then you don't have to name the type of clothing.
But you do because the issue with some of the clothing is that is how tight the clothing is.
Uniforms.
People would say no yoga pants or things like that because they think it's gonna expose the skin.
I'm sorry, but.
Can we revisit spandex when we revisit hats?
Yes.
Sure.
Please. We'll be marinate on
With Debbie down there.
Right.
I don't think,
Definitely no on spandex hats.
I don't think you should wait though, because if you're gonna send it to the attorney, put a possible in there so that you don't have to send it back again.
Okay, so let's put possible on the spandex and we go to the attorney.
So there's two options, and then that way we know.
Yep, that sounds good, thank you.
I think if you said yoga pants or bike shorts, I think that makes it very clear.
But yoga pants, do you realize what yoga pants are? They're the same thing as leggings with a wider bottom, wider bell bottom.
Right.
It's the same as leggings.
Yeah, I'm familiar with.
But some
But
of
you're
them,
saying biker shorts are yoga pants, so.
but some yoga pants are like,
Yes, I am.
they're not as tight
It's women's clothes.
I was trying to say it in a way, Sue. that doesn't
I'm
work.
talking to Gary.
Okay, what we're gonna do
I was
is we're
trying to
gonna keep that as a
differentiate
possible.
That's fine.
Okay, we have 1 minute. We need to extend again. To extend.
No.
We need to because we're not gonna get this. Okay, so what we'll do is,
Come on, what else is left?
We took it, you took it and L already.
right, so what, so this policy on page 12 and 13 as amended, if you could bring it to Shipman to look at it again, and then it'll come back next month.
We just need clarification on this. The spandex part, is that completely out? Is
That would be a possible,
But that wording or different wording?
that wording.
We should bring this, should we bring this to full board?
No, we can't,
Except for Ed,
because we need
he
to
doesn't count anymore.
have it go through the attorney first.
Right, but we've talked about that.
So it's gotta go through the attorney and then come back to us, and then
I guess I don't know why it would have to come back to the subcommittee.
Because what if they changed it?
Angela's.
No, he's not.
You're pushing it out a whole other month.
You gotta get this out.
Okay, so how about,
Can you move it to the full board unless they edit it? And then you don't have to come back for anything? If it's not edited, it goes right to the full board.
We haven't even agreed on a policy yet, have we? Or you just said we're tabling the spandex and the hats and hoodies?
Yeah, so I mean, we need to,
yeah, and I'm not sure how quick they can turn it around either, so that's what
Right.
we have to figure out.
so have the attorneys look at it, then it'll come back to policy.
We don't have two pieces of it finalized yet, correct? The hats.
The hats and the hoods, but I mean, that's up to us. I don't think that's an attorney thing.
I think we should have it vetted, because anything we're changing could impact the overall
Right.
policy.
Yeah, they have to be able to. defend
Okay,
what
so we
we're
decided
putting
for
in
B,
place.
no hats or hoods. And then head coverings that worn as part of the student's religious practice or belief, blah, blah, shall be permitted. Okay, we'll
Did
take that
somebody-
to Shipman.
Did somebody say? Was it anyone that said hats? It wasn't just baseball caps, it was.
No, it
hats
was
with a-
just
hats with a brim,
brimless,
hats,
right.
right, hats with a brim. Because then all of the other coverings they could
Okay.
still wear.
So hoods or hats with a brim are prohibited, and then the head coverings worn as blah, blah, for B. Okay, so let me get back to my. I lost it. There we go. D, we're gonna table for next time. Happens for future meeting.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm still confused on this spandex section.
How it's worded there.
This exact wording
Yep.
is one option,
Yep.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Marissa, you getting all this?
The way it's
I
worded, you
know.
know it's fine, because this is their policy.
I know.
Right.
But do we need to have it in there so that they will give us an opinion?
It's not just that sentence, it's the number of
entirety.
entirety that apply to different people as well.
Right. So, I mean, spandex. So it's just really like tight clothing.
Is it though? Spandex is weird because it is a material. It's not-
There's
Right,
spandex
that's why I
in
don't like
some shirts, I mean,
Yeah.
or whatever, this has spandex in it.
Well, that was what the letter that you read.
Right.
That writer made a good point.
Right. So
Do they wear
skin tight
tights?
Clothing?
Could you say that?
Just
Tights.
tights.
No,
Less for
It's just something called
Okay.
What about the ankles? They're not wearing them.
Leggings.
They reject.
Okay, extend the meeting another 5 minutes.
So
Don't even say that.
Second.
Don't even.
All in favor?
I,
John?
I'm trying. Oh.
It's a long drive.
I said I'll try.
Okay, 9:18, another 5 minutes. Okay.
Get your number.
Alan, I'm sorry, where did we leave off with the spandex?
We don't know. You just took up 5 minutes.
Or are you?
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know, still working on it.
Okay.
Well, none of this is a real policy either.
None of it is a real policy also. You can come back and say, there's things that we need to put in, consider this is okay with this,
We're not
maybe it
done
should be that. Okay,
Could be yoga pants.
I don't think it should be, personal opinion, no yoga pants, okay. That yoga pants are allowed is what I mean. Okay, topics for future meetings, I think maybe dress code. Comments for the good of the order, Sue?
No, thank you. Glenn?
I'm learning a lot.
You were more-
I don't know how you're gonna do it, guys.
Jess?
to the kids and everybody that's frustrated with the detail and the this and the that, like I totally understand why you're frustrated, just understand that the other option is uniforms. So if you hear some of us arguing, trying to find compromise, that is, the other option is uniforms.
Say it again.
I hope you enjoy your breakfast.
Just thank you to the
Getting
kids
over
and
it is.
families who showed up,
Yes,
and
thank
to
you
our
for your
administrators for sharing your input.
See you next month.
It's a process.
laughed at the attendance.
That's too smart for me to understand.
Enough said.
Sue, thank you, students and staff.
Ryan,
I'm good.
Yeah.
Sue, thank you, everyone. I think it was a very productive conversation. Thank you, Al.
Just like your cell phones.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
9:20.